The multiverse is a tapestry of infinite realities, each governed by its own immutable laws. But what happens when a thread from one universe tears violently through into another, bringing power that was never meant to exist in that space? When gods walk among soldiers, when hope confronts extinction, when 7 heroes fall into a war where genocide is policy and survival is victory, reality itself must recalibrate. The boom tube tore apart. Superman felt it first. The sickening lurch as the portal that should have delivered them back to the watchtower instead collapsed inward, folding space in ways that even his Kryptonian senses couldn't parse. One moment, the Justice League had been retreating from Apocalypse after repelling Darkseid's latest invasion. The next, the tunnel of light and energy that was their escape route shuddered, twisted, and inverted. "Bruce, the tube's destabilizing." Cyborg's voice cracked across the comm as his internal systems screamed warnings. His mother box integration was going haywire, detecting dimensional frequencies that shouldn't exist. Batman's response was immediate. "Everyone, brace for..." The boom tube detonated, not with fire or force, but with a silent implosion that swallowed the 7 heroes and spat them into a void that wasn't quite space and wasn't quite anything else. Slip space, though they had no name for it yet. A dimensional underlay where faster-than-light travel became possible, where the normal laws of physics bent into origami shapes. Superman grabbed Flash and Wonder Woman, his cape wrapping around them as the chaotic non-space tried to pull them in 7 different directions. Green Lantern's emerald bubble encased Batman and Aquaman, his ring flaring with desperate intensity. Cyborg tumbled alone, his cybernetic components screaming as they tried to interface with this alien dimension, the mother box in his chest pulsing with frantic calculations. Then, as suddenly as it began, slip space expelled them. 7 figures erupted into real space above a planet that wasn't Earth. Superman's eyes adjusted instantly. Yellow sun, thank God. But wrong constellations, wrong stellar density, wrong everything. The planet below was terrestrial, Earth-like, with blue oceans and green continents. But the orbital infrastructure was all wrong. Dozens of massive stations hung in geosynchronous orbit, bristling with what his vision identified as weapons platforms. And descending toward the planet's surface was a fleet, not human ships. Superman knew human engineering. These vessels were organic-looking, bulbous things with luminescent purple hulls that seemed to shimmer with energy fields. The largest, a carrier at least 2 miles long, was positioning itself above one of the planet's major cities. "Everyone sound off," Batman commanded, his voice tight with the control that came from years of crisis management. "Here." Wonder Woman had her lasso ready, scanning for threats. "Present, but my ring's charge is at 78%. Green Lantern. John Stewart's construct flickered. "And I'm not reading the central power battery at all." "I'm good, but guys..." Flash vibrated anxiously. "Where are we? Because this isn't Earth, and I'm not feeling the speed force the same way. It's there, but muted, distant." "Cyborg," Superman called. "I'm okay, I think." Cyborg's human eye was wide with shock. "My systems are interfacing with something. There's a network here, massive, spanning this entire system. AI constructs, military channels, and..." "Wait." His cybernetic eye glowed brighter. "I'm picking up distress signals, thousands of them, from the planet's surface." Aquaman floated closer to Superman, trident ready. "No water nearby for me to work with up here, but I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships. They're powering weapons." Batman was already deploying sensor drones from his belt, tiny machines that scattered into the void to gather data. His tactical mind was 3 steps ahead, cataloging threats, analyzing ship designs, calculating force distributions. Those vessels aren't here for peaceful purposes. Hull configuration suggests. The alien carrier opened fire. Lances of superheated plasma, so bright they burned purple-white, screamed down from orbit. Not at the Justice League, at the planet below. Superman's enhanced vision tracked the trajectory in microseconds. A city, population readings suggesting millions, directly in the firing path. He moved. One moment, Superman was floating in orbital space. The next, he was a blue and red streak crossing thousands of miles in a heartbeat. Atmospheric entry turning him into a meteor as he positioned himself between the plasma bombardment and the city below. The first lance hit him square in the chest. It felt like being punched by a star. Superman gritted his teeth, his Kryptonian cells absorbing and dissipating energy that would have vaporized continents. Heat vision flared from his eyes, not in attack but in controlled redirection, splitting the plasma beam and channeling it safely into the upper atmosphere where it dispersed in harmless flashes of light. A second beam came. A third. He caught them all, his body a living shield positioned between genocide and millions of innocent lives who had no idea a god had just interceded on their behalf. On the ground, people looked up. Colonists who moments ago had been running for shelters, parents clutching children, soldiers manning useless defensive batteries. All of them saw the impossible. A man in a blue suit with a red cape, hovering 300 feet above their city, catching weapons of mass destruction with his bare hands. In orbit, the rest of the Justice League stared. "Well," Flash said quietly, "I think we just announced ourselves." The alien fleet noticed. Every ship in the formation pivoted, weapons arrays swiveling away from the planet and toward the 6 remaining heroes. Targeting lasers painted them in crimson light. Wonder Woman drew her sword. "Sisters and brothers, I believe we've found our fight." "Negative," Batman countermanded, his voice razor sharp. "We don't know who these people are, what this conflict is about, or why." A new signal cut across all frequencies. Cyborg jerked as it punched through his systems, bypassing firewalls, speaking in accented but clear English. "Unidentified vessels. This is UNSC frigate Gettysburg. You are in violation of Epsilon Eridani space during active combat operations. Identify yourselves immediately or be fired upon. Respond now." Green Lantern's eyes widened. "UNSC? United Nations Space Command? Is this still humanity?" Before anyone could answer, the alien fleet opened fire. Not with plasma lances this time, with thousands of smaller weapons, a storm of purple energy bolts that filled the orbital space between the League and the ships. And rising from the planet below, burning hard on chemical thrusters, came human vessels. Smaller than the alien craft, gray and angular and bristling with railguns, they charged directly into the firestorm. "They're going to be slaughtered," Aquaman observed grimly. Superman returned to the group in a blur of motion, his cape singed, but his expression determined. "Not if we have anything to say about it. League." He met each of their eyes in turn, that unshakable optimism that made him Superman, burning bright, even in this alien sky. "We figure out where we are later. Right now, people need help." Batman's jaw tightened behind his cowl. He was going to argue. They needed intel, needed to understand the situation before committing to action. But he also knew that look in Clark's eyes, and he'd seen those plasma weapons hit the atmosphere. "Fine," he growled, "but we do this smart. Stewart, shields for those human ships. Diana, Arthur, disable alien weapons, non-lethal where possible. Flash, evacuate any damaged vessels. Cyborg, get me a line to whoever's in charge down there. And Clark," Superman was already smiling, "try not to punch any ships in half. Got it?" "I was going to say, don't trust anyone yet," Batman finished. "But yes, that too." The Justice League scattered into the orbital battlefield. 7 heroes against an alien armada, fighting for people they'd never met in a universe they didn't understand. Earth's greatest defenders had just arrived in the Halo universe, and neither the UNSC nor the Covenant had any idea what was about to hit them. The UNSC frigate Gettysburg shuddered as another plasma bolt scorched past its starboard side, close enough that the shields flared violet before failing completely. Captain Johansson gripped the command chair, watching his tactical display dissolve into chaos. 12 Covenant vessels against his 3 frigates and a battered destroyer. They'd been fighting a losing battle for the last 40 minutes, trying to buy time for the civilian transports to escape Reach's orbit. Now his sensors were showing him something impossible. "Ma'am, I'm reading 7 distinct contacts, human-sized, moving at..." The sensor officer's voice cracked. "This can't be right. One of them just crossed 400 kilometers in under 2 seconds." "Show me," Johansson demanded. The main view screen shifted from the Covenant carrier to a rapidly updating feed. 7 figures, apparently unshielded, moving through hard vacuum like it was nothing. As she watched, one of them, impossible to make out details at this distance, positioned itself directly in front of the Gettysburg's bow as a Covenant plasma torpedo streaked toward them. A green barrier materialized out of nothing. The torpedo hit and detonated harmlessly against a construct of pure emerald light shaped like a shield, intricate geometric patterns visible even through the explosion's glare. "What in God's name?" Johansson whispered. Her tactical officer found his voice first. "Ma'am, 2 more contacts are engaging the Covenant cruiser directly. They're tearing through its hull plating with their bare hands." Wonder Woman's sword carved through the Covenant cruiser's lateral plasma battery like it was paper. Next to her, Aquaman's trident punctured a weapon mount, and with a grunt of effort, he physically ripped the entire assembly free from the hull and hurled it into space. Covenant elites in vacuum suits rushed to intercept them, energy swords igniting. But Diana moved with the grace of 3,000 years of combat experience. Her bracers deflected plasma bolts, her lasso snared 3 elites at once, and she pulled them away from the breach without killing them, just incapacitating them and letting them drift. "Arthur, disable only," she reminded him. "We don't know the full situation yet." Aquaman grunted, using his trident's butt to smash through another weapons port. "Tell that to them. They were glassing a city." Inside the Covenant carrier, Pious Inquisitor, panic was spreading. Shipmaster Thel Vadami, not yet the Arbiter, still a rising commander in the fleet of particular justice, watched his tactical display with a mixture of fury and disbelief. 2 demons were systematically disabling his fleet's weapons, moving through vacuum as easily as elites moved through atmosphere. And the reports from his warriors were impossible. "Shipmaster, the creatures are deflecting plasma fire with metal bracelets," an elite reported over comms. "And one of them wields a golden rope that..." The transmission cut off. "All batteries, concentrate fire on..." Thel began, but another report interrupted him. "Shipmaster, new contact, moving at impossible velocity. It's inside the hangar bay." Flash vibrated through the carrier's hull like it wasn't there, his molecules slipping between atoms at a frequency that let him phase through solid matter. He emerged in a massive hangar filled with purple Banshee fighters and squads of grunts and jackals preparing to launch. They turned toward him, weapons rising, but before a single shot was fired, Flash was already moving. To the Covenant, he was a red and yellow blur that touched each of their weapons in turn. When the blur stopped, Flash stood at the hangar's far end, waving. Every plasma rifle, needler, and energy sword in the bay sparked and died, their power cells carefully short-circuited at super speed. "Sorry, guys," Flash called out cheerfully. "Safety first." Then he was gone, vibrating back through the hull to the next ship. Cyborg hung in space near the Gettysburg, his cybernetic systems fully engaged with the local networks. The UNSC's communication protocols were military-grade encrypted, but the mother box technology in his chest operated on principles that made even apocalyptian firewalls look primitive. He wasn't hacking, not exactly. He was translating, finding the bridge between new God technology and this universe's computing architecture. "Batman, I've got their channel," Cyborg reported. "Patching you through to their command structure now. But boss, you need to see what I'm seeing in their databases. It's bad." Batman's voice came back grim. "How bad?" "Extinction level bad. I'm reading reports of over 100 worlds glassed. That means sterilized, all life eliminated. Billions dead. This war's been going on for decades, and humanity is losing." Batman processed that in silence for exactly 2 seconds. Then, "Open the channel." On the Gettysburg's bridge, every console suddenly displayed the same image. A cowled figure in gray and black, bat symbol prominent on his chest, floating in hard vacuum like it was the most natural thing in the world. "UNSC Command. This is Batman of the Justice League. We are not hostile. We're here to help." His voice was measured, authoritative, the tone of someone used to being listened to. "But we need information, and we need it now. What is this conflict? Who are you fighting, and why?" Captain Johansson stared at the screen. "Batman. Justice League." The words meant nothing to her, but the figure on screen had just casually bypassed every security protocol they had. Identify yourself. Properly. Where are you from? What ship?" "Not from any ship you'd recognize," Batman replied. "And not from this universe, if our readings are correct. But that's secondary. Your planet is under attack. We've temporarily disabled the hostile fleet's offensive capabilities, but that won't last. You have approximately 12 minutes before they adapt. Use that time to evacuate more civilians and brief me on the tactical situation." "Not from this universe." The sensor officer looked to his captain. "Ma'am, is he saying, 'Stow it'?" Johansson's mind raced. Impossible visitors, impossible powers, but they were actively saving her fleet and the colony below. In war, you took your miracles where you found them. "Unidentified contact. Batman, you're saying you disabled 12 Covenant warships?" "6 of us did, yes," Batman confirmed. "The 7th is currently preventing surface bombardment. Now answer my question. What is this war?" The captain took a breath. "The Covenant, that's what we call them, are a collective of alien species united by religious doctrine. They believe humanity's existence is blasphemy against their gods, the Forerunners. They've been systematically wiping us out for 27 years. We're not winning. We're barely surviving." Batman's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped a fraction. "Religious genocide. Yes. And the Forerunners? Ancient alien civilization. They vanished 100,000 years ago, left behind technology we barely understand. The Covenant worships them as gods, and they're looking for Forerunner artifacts. We don't know why." On another channel, Superman was having a different conversation. He'd descended to reach his surface, hovering above the city's central plaza where thousands of colonists had gathered, staring up at him in awe and fear. Military personnel, soldiers in heavy gray armor that Superman identified as significantly more advanced than 21st century Earth tech, had formed a perimeter, weapons not quite aimed at him, but ready. One soldier stepped forward, and Superman's enhanced vision immediately caught details. The armor was different from the others, more advanced, integrated systems, and the person inside was young. Too young, some part of him thought. The armor's faceplate was reflective, but Superman could see through it with his X-ray vision. A woman, mid-20s, with augmentation scars visible along her neural pathways. "I'm Spartan 087, the soldier said, her voice filtered through the helmet speakers. "Call sign Kelly. You need to identify yourself and come with us for debriefing." Superman landed gently, hands open and non-threatening. "I'm Superman. I'm here to help. Your planet was about to be attacked." "Was being attacked," Kelly corrected. "Until you interfered. We had orbital Mac platforms ready to fire, longsword squadrons on standby, and now there are 7 unknowns in our airspace who just disabled an entire Covenant fleet without authorization or coordination with UNSC forces." Superman blinked. He'd expected gratitude, or at least acknowledgement that he'd just saved millions of lives. Instead, he was getting a tactical assessment that treated him as a potential threat. "I stopped them from glassing your city," he said carefully. "Yes, you did." Kelly's posture didn't relax. "And now Oni, Office of Naval Intelligence, wants to know how, why, and whether you're going to do it again. Orders are to escort you to HICOM facility for debriefing. Will you comply voluntarily?" Behind his back, Superman's hands clenched briefly. This wasn't how first contacts were supposed to go, but he also recognized the tone in Kelly's voice. She wasn't being hostile. She was being professional, following orders in a military structure that was clearly under extreme stress. Before he could answer, 5 more armored figures descended on jetpacks, surrounding him. All Spartans, all moving with the coordinated precision of elite special forces. And each one had their weapon, some kind of advanced rifle, trained on him. Green Lantern's voice crackled in Superman's ear. "Clark, I'm reading 6 targets painting you with targeting lasers. You need extraction?" "Negative," Superman said quietly, raising his hand slowly. "I'll go with them. We need to understand this situation, and antagonizing the people we just saved won't help." Kelly tilted her head slightly, surprised maybe that he'd complied so easily. "Smart choice. Transport's inbound. Your team members in orbit will need to comply as well." "They will," Superman promised. "But understand something. We came here by accident. We intervened because it was the right thing to do. And we're not your enemies. We're also not your prisoners." One of the other Spartans, Spartan 104, according to his armor designation, spoke up. "That's for Oni to determine." In orbit, Batman listened to the exchange through Cyborg's relay and felt cold certainty settle in his chest. He'd seen this pattern before. Military governments under existential threat, desperate for any advantage, willing to sacrifice principles for survival. They'd just saved these people, and now they were about to be treated as weapons to be controlled or threats to be neutralized. "League," he said quietly over their private channel. "We're not in Kansas anymore. Stay sharp. Something tells me the real complications are just beginning." Wonder Woman, finishing the disabling of the last Covenant weapons battery, looked toward the planet below where Superman was being surrounded by soldiers. "Batman, do we comply with their demands?" "For now," Batman replied, watching transport ships launch from the surface. "We need information, and they need to see we're not hostile. But nobody surrenders their equipment, and nobody goes anywhere alone. We stay together, or this ends badly." The UNSC transports rose to collect them, gray military vessels with all the warmth of prison ships. The Justice League had just arrived in a universe at war, and they'd already learned the first hard lesson. When survival is at stake, even the people you save might see you as a threat. The UNSC frigate Gettysburg had been hastily converted into a makeshift diplomatic vessel. or interrogation site, depending on how one looked at it. The Justice League stood in what had been a cargo bay, now ringed by 24 Marines in full combat gear and 4 Spartans in Mjolnir armor. Overhead, automated turrets tracked their every movement. The atmosphere was tense enough to cut with a knife. Batman cataloged every detail. The soldiers' body language spoke of barely controlled fear masked as discipline. Their weapons, MA-5B assault rifles he'd learned from Cyborg's data dump, were held at low ready, not quite aimed, but ready to snap up in a heartbeat. The Spartans were different. Perfectly still, utterly calm, but with a coiled readiness that reminded him of Deathstroke or other enhanced operatives. The door hissed open. A woman entered, flanked by 2 more Spartans. She was older, late 50s perhaps, with steel-gray hair pulled back severely and eyes that had seen too much. Her uniform bore insignia that Cyborg's quick network dive identified as Vice Admiral Margaret Parangoski, head of ONI Section 0, the blackest of Black Ops. "Well," Parangoski said, voice clipped and no nonsense. "This is certainly unprecedented." Superman stepped forward, offering his hand. "Ma'am, I'm..." "Superman. Yes, we've been monitoring your communications." She didn't take his hand. Instead, she gestured to a technician who activated a holographic display. It showed footage of the orbital battle. Superman catching plasma bombardment, Wonder Woman and Aquaman tearing through Covenant hulls, Flash phasing through solid matter, Green Lantern's constructs defying known physics. 7 individuals with capabilities that violate everything we understand about human limitations, appearing from nowhere during a Covenant assault. You'll forgive me if I'm less concerned with pleasantries and more interested in whether you're a threat to humanity's survival. Wonder Woman's eyes narrowed. "We just saved your colony." "Yes, you did." Parangoski's gaze swept across them. "And in doing so, you revealed capabilities that both the UNSC and the Covenant will now be desperate to understand, replicate, or destroy. You've painted targets on your backs, and potentially on every human colony if the Covenant believes we've developed super soldiers beyond the Spartan program." Batman spoke, his voice cutting through the tension. "You're not afraid of us attacking you. You're afraid of what happens when your enemies learn we exist." Parangoski's expression shifted minutely. Approval, maybe. "Smart, yes. The Covenant has superior numbers, technology, and firepower. We survive through mobility, unpredictability, and the Spartans. If they believe humanity has developed meta-human capabilities..." She stressed the word like she'd pulled it from their intercepted communications. "They'll escalate. Glassings will increase. They'll commit more ships, more warriors, until they're certain the threat is neutralized. Then we help you fight them," Superman said simply. "With respect, Superman." One of the Spartans stepped forward. The designation on his armor read, Spartan 1 and 17, Master Chief. Even through the gold-tinted visor, Batman could feel the intensity of his assessment. "You don't understand what you're offering. The Covenant doesn't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They believe humans are an affront to their gods, and they will not stop until every last one of us is dead. This war has been going for 27 years. We've lost hundreds of worlds, billions of people, and we're losing." The chief's voice was flat, emotionless, but the words carried the weight of decades of brutal warfare. Batman recognized it, the tone of someone who'd seen horrors and kept fighting because the alternative was extinction. Flash raised a hand tentatively. "Okay, but 7 of us just disabled 12 of their ships. We can help turn this around." "Can you be in 1,000 places at once?" Another Spartan, Kelly from earlier, asked. Because the Covenant attacks on multiple fronts constantly. They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. You stopped one assault on one planet. How many colonies are being glassed right now while we're talking? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Cyborg's human eye widened slightly as data streamed through his systems. She's not exaggerating. I'm reading distress signals from 16 different colonies, current active assaults, and... His voice dropped. 3 have gone silent in the last hour. Communications just stopped. Superman's jaw tightened. Then we split up, cover more ground. And if the Covenant adapts? Parangoski challenged. You've shown them plasma bombardment doesn't work. They'll try something else. Nova bombs, biological weapons, or they'll simply commit overwhelming force. You disabled those ships non-lethally, admirable, but that means those crews are still alive to report back. The Prophets will want you captured, studied, or killed, possibly all 3. Batman's mind was already racing ahead, running scenarios. She was right. They'd intervened with overwhelming force and minimal information, and now they were a strategic problem for both sides. Classic asymmetric warfare complication. Too powerful to ignore, not powerful enough to be everywhere. What do you suggest? He asked Parangoski directly. The Admiral smiled thinly. You work with us, officially. We coordinate your deployments, provide intelligence on Covenant movements, and in exchange, you let our scientists understand your capabilities. Not to replicate them. She raised a hand as Batman's expression darkened. But to understand their limitations and develop tactics around them. And if we refuse? Wonder Woman's hand rested on her lasso. Then you're unlawful combatants in a war zone, and I have the authority to treat you as hostile unknowns. Parangoski's voice didn't rise, but the threat was crystal clear. I'd rather not. You saved 80,000 colonists today. That buys goodwill. But this is humanity's survival we're discussing, not a comic book adventure. The phrase hung awkwardly. Comic book adventure. They didn't have that context here. Aquaman stepped forward, trident planted. We've faced existential threats before. Darkseid, Brainiac, the Anti-Monitor, gods and monsters and conquerors who wanted to enslave or destroy our world. We've never needed authorization to do what's right. Your world, Parangoski repeated. Singular. This conflict spans hundreds of star systems, and you're not in your world anymore. She gestured to the view screen, which showed Reach below, a beautiful blue-green planet with orbital scars where plasma had burned atmosphere. This is our reality. You want to help? Then you learn how we fight, or you'll make things worse. Master Chief spoke again, and this time there was something almost respectful in his tone. Ma'am, permission to speak freely? Granted, Chief. These individuals saved the colony when our defense grid was failing. I've reviewed the tactical footage. Their capabilities are real, and they exercised restraint, disabled enemy weapon systems without destroying the ships entirely. That's not the action of hostiles. He turned slightly to face Superman. But it is the action of people who don't know what war in the outer colonies looks like. The Covenant doesn't show mercy, ever. If you're going to fight them, you need to understand that. Batman caught something in the Chief's posture, a subtle tension. This was a soldier who'd been fighting since childhood. Cyborg had pulled files during their initial network infiltration, the Spartan 2 program. Children abducted at age 6, augmented, trained, turned into living weapons. Batman's detective instincts immediately flagged it. This entire military was built on morally compromised ground. but that was a problem for later. "We'll coordinate," Batman said, cutting through before Superman could object. "Temporary operational alliance. You provide intelligence and strategic briefings. We provide tactical support. But we're not surrendering to your custody, and we're not test subjects." Parangoski studied him for a long moment. "You're the one without powers, aren't you? The tactician." "I'm the one who sees the bigger picture," Batman corrected. "And right now, the bigger picture is that we're stranded in your universe. You're fighting a war of extinction, and we have a shared interest in staying alive long enough to figure out our next move." "Acceptable." Parangoski gestured, and the Marines lowered their weapons fractionally. "We'll establish you in a secured facility on Reach. Limited access to our networks, supervised movements, and a full briefing on Covenant capabilities and tactics. In exchange, you respond to crisis situations as they develop." Green Lantern John Stewart, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of his own military experience. Marine Corps before the Ring chose him. "What about our autonomy? We're not soldiers in your chain of command." "No," Parangoski agreed. "You're not. Consider yourselves independent contractors. We request you choose whether to respond, but understand, every time you refuse, people die who might have lived." It was masterful manipulation, and Batman recognized it immediately. Tie their conscience to compliance. Make every refusal feel like complicity in civilian deaths. He'd have to watch this woman carefully. Superman looked to his team. They'd worked together long enough that communication happened in glances. Flash's nervous energy, Wonder Woman's warrior assessment, Aquaman's skeptical calculation, Green Lantern's tactical consideration, Cyborg's technological curiosity, and Batman's cold strategic evaluation. "We'll help," Superman decided. "But on our terms. We're not weapons you deploy. We're heroes trying to do right in an impossible situation." Heroes. Parangoski tasted the word. "We'll see if that survives first contact with the reality of this war." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Tomorrow, you'll be meeting with Dr. Catherine Halsey. She's the scientist responsible for the Spartan program, the reason these soldiers exist. She'll want to understand your abilities from a scientific perspective." Batman's expression darkened infinitesimally. The woman who created child soldiers. The room went deadly quiet. Every Spartan's posture shifted, minute changes, but Batman caught them. Defensive, protective even. Master Chief's voice was colder now. "Dr. Halsey saved humanity. The Spartans have prevented colony losses that would have cost billions more lives. At what cost?" Batman's question was quiet, but cut like a blade. "At whatever cost was necessary," Chief replied. "That's what survival means." The two stared at each other. The Dark Knight who'd built his crusade on protecting children, and the super soldier who'd been a child when his war began. Two sides of the same coin, forged in different philosophies. Parangoski broke the standoff. "Philosophical debates can wait. Right now you need rest, orientation, and equipment checks. We've prepared quarters, separate rooms, monitored for your safety and ours. Food will be provided. Tomorrow we brief you on Covenant Force structures, Forerunner artifacts, and the strategic situation." Dismissed. As the Marines and Spartans escorted them out, Batman fell into step beside Superman. "Clark," he said quietly, "we need to be very careful here." "I know." Superman's expression was troubled. "They're not wrong. People need help, and we can provide it. But this military was desperate enough to abduct children and turn them into weapons." Batman finished. Which means they're desperate enough to do anything to win, including using us. Wonder Woman joined them, her voice low. And did you notice? They never asked how we arrived here, or whether we can leave. The implications settled over them like a shroud. They'd fallen into a universe at war, been welcomed as saviors, and were already being maneuvered into becoming assets. As they were led deeper into the ship, past corridors lined with soldiers, too young and too hard-eyed, Flash voiced what they were all thinking. Guys, I don't think we're the heroes in this story. I think we're just the latest weapons. Behind them, watching through security feeds, Admiral Parangoski spoke into her secure comm channel. Dr. Halsey, I'm sending you sensor data on all 7 individuals. Priority analysis. I want to know if we can replicate their capabilities, contain them if necessary, or, if it comes to it, neutralize them. Understood, came the cool, clinical reply. Though, Margaret, I suspect these 7 might be far more valuable, alive, and cooperative. For now, Parangoski agreed. But this is humanity's survival, if they become a liability instead of an asset. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The Justice League had saved a colony, but in doing so, they'd become players in a game where every piece was expendable. And the only rule was survival at any cost. The observation deck of HICOM Facility Bravo 6 offered a panoramic view of Reach's surface. Sprawling military installations, atmospheric processors, and the gleaming spires of New Alexandria in the distance. Superman stood at the reinforced windows, watching dawn break over this world that wasn't Earth, wrestling with the uncomfortable realization that saving people here might be far more complicated than he'd anticipated. Behind him, the briefing room buzzed with activity. UNSC personnel moved with practiced efficiency, setting up holographic displays and secure data terminals. The Justice League sat around a conference table that was clearly designed for high-level strategic planning, each hero processing the night's revelations in their own way. Flash drummed his fingers at super speed, a nervous habit. So, just to recap, we're stuck in a universe where humanity is losing a religious genocide. There's ancient alien tech everywhere that nobody understands, and the good guys use child soldiers. Did I miss anything? The part where they're monitoring everything we say and do, Aquaman added dryly, gesturing to the dozen security cameras barely hidden in the ceiling panels. Cyborg's human eye flicked toward the cameras, while his cybernetic systems traced the data flows running through the facility's networks. Actually, it's worse than that. They've got adaptive learning algorithms tracking our behavioral patterns, predictive models trying to anticipate our capabilities, and... He paused, something shifting in his expression. Someone very smart is actively trying to interface with my systems. Non-hostile, just probing. Sophisticated stuff. Dr. Halsey, Batman said without looking up from the datapad he'd been given. He'd spent the night absorbing everything the UNSC had provided about the Covenant, the war, and humanity's strategic situation. She'll be here soon. She's curious about you specifically, Victor. Mother box technology interfacing with human cybernetics. To her, you're a walking impossibility. Great, Cyborg muttered. Nothing like being someone's science project. Wonder Woman stood near Superman, her warrior's instincts attuned to the subtle wrongness of this place. These Spartans, the ones who guard us, they move like Amazons, trained from childhood, honed for war, but... She trailed off, struggling with the comparison. On Themyscira, we choose the warrior's path. These children were taken. Conscripted at age 6, Batman confirmed, his voice flat with suppressed anger. augmented at 14 with procedures that had a 56% fatality rate. The survivors became humanity's most effective weapons against the Covenant. Spartans have turned battles, saved colonies, prevented losses that would have meant billions of casualties. Green Lantern John Stewart recognized the tone. He'd heard similar justifications during his Marine service. Ends justifying means. Except the ends haven't been achieved, Batman countered. Humanity is still losing. They've just lost more slowly. The door opened. Master Chief entered first, taking a position by the wall with the silent presence of a guardian statue. Behind him came a woman in her late 40s, slim, with sharp features and eyes that radiated fierce intelligence. She wore a simple gray lab coat over civilian clothes, and she moved with the confidence of someone who knew she was the smartest person in any room she entered. Dr. Catherine Halsey didn't wait for introductions. Her gaze swept across the Justice League with analytical intensity, lingering on each member as if cataloging capabilities in real time. "Fascinating," she said, her voice carrying the clinical detachment of pure scientific curiosity. Kryptonian physiology, Amazonian divine heritage, mother box integration, speed force connection, power ring construct manipulation, Atlantean genetic drift, and... She paused at Batman. Pure human optimization with technological augmentation. You're a living encyclopedia of impossibilities. Superman stood, offering his hand. "Dr. Halsey, I know who you are. I've reviewed the footage from yesterday's engagement 43 times. She shook his hand perfunctorily, but her attention had already moved to Cyborg. "You, the mother box integration. That's not technology from this universe. The processing architecture alone suggests computational paradigms that shouldn't exist. May I scan you?" Cyborg leaned back defensively. "That's a hard no, Doc. I'm not asking permission to dissect you, Mr. Stone. Yes, I've accessed your communication logs. I'm asking to understand how transdimensional technology interfaces with human neurology. The implications for AI development alone." "Catherine." Another voice cut through her enthusiasm. Admiral Parangoski entered, flanked by 2 other senior officers. "Perhaps we should conduct this strategic briefing before you start planning your research projects." Halsey's expression soured slightly, but she stepped back. "Of course, Margaret. Though I maintain that understanding their capabilities is crucial to properly deploying them." "Deploying?" Batman repeated, his voice dangerously soft. Interesting word choice. Parangoski moved to the head of the table, and the holographic displays activated. The image showed the Milky Way galaxy, with hundreds of star systems marked in various colors. Green for UNSC-controlled space, which was concentrated in the inner colonies around Earth. Red for confirmed Covenant-controlled territory, which was vast and expanding. Gray for contested space, and black for systems that had been glassed, rendered lifeless. There was a lot of black. "This is the current strategic situation," Parangoski began. "The Covenant consists of multiple alien species united under a theocratic government called the Prophets. They've been at war with humanity since 2525, 27 years. Their technology is superior, their numbers overwhelming, and their goal is our complete extermination." She zoomed in on the region around Reach. "We're currently in the Epsilon Eridani system. Reach is humanity's largest military installation outside Earth. Shipyards, training facilities, research centers. If Reach falls, we lose 70% of our fleet production capacity. And the Covenant knows this," Master Chief added. "Which is why the fleet you encountered yesterday was just a scouting force. Fleet intelligence suggests a larger assault is coming, possibly within weeks." Flash's fingers stopped drumming. A scouting force? Those were 12 capital ships. The fleet of particular justice has over 300 vessels, Halsey said, bringing up ship schematics. Commanded by Supreme Commander Thel Vadami, one of the Covenant's most effective military leaders. If he commits to a full assault on Reach, we estimate our defensive forces have a 38% chance of holding for more than 48 hours. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Wonder Woman leaned forward. Then we help you fortify, set up defensive positions, coordinate with your fleet. You're 7 individuals, one of the other officers interrupted. Colonel Holland, according to his nameplate. We have 300 orbital MAC platforms, 50 capital ships, and 20,000 ground personnel, including a dozen Spartan teams. The problem isn't firepower. It's that the Covenant has more. They can afford to trade 10 ships for every one of ours and still win through attrition. Then we change the equation, Superman said. I can take out their command ships. Flash can evacuate civilian populations before bombardment. Green Lantern can create shields that... Can your Green Lantern shield an entire planet? Parangoski asked bluntly. Jon Stewart's jaw tightened. No, not at my current charge level. And I can't recharge. The central power battery is in another universe. Can Superman destroy 300 ships before they glass Reach? Silence. Batman spoke quietly. You're making your point, Admiral. We're powerful, but we're not infinite. We can't be everywhere, we can't save everyone, and deploying us piecemeal won't win this war. Exactly. Parangoski's expression held grim satisfaction. Which is why we need to be strategic. Use you as force multipliers in situations where your unique capabilities create disproportionate impact. Halsey stepped forward again, her scientific enthusiasm returning. Which brings us to the Forerunners, the ancient civilization the Covenant worships. They vanished 100,000 years ago, but they left behind installations throughout the galaxy. The Covenant believes activating these installations will trigger something called the Great Journey, ascension to godhood. And you don't believe that? Batman observed. I believe the Forerunners were advanced beyond our comprehension, but they weren't gods, Halsey replied. We've recovered artifacts. Technology that manipulates gravity, generates hard light constructs, stores data in quantum crystal lattices. The Covenant's entire technological base is built on reverse engineering Forerunner discoveries. They're fundamentally cargo cult worshippers of a dead civilization. She brought up images of strange installations, massive ring structures floating in space, ancient facilities buried on forgotten worlds, all bearing the same angular aesthetic and mysterious purpose. These are Halo installations. We don't know what they do, but the Covenant is searching for them obsessively. They believe Halo is the key to the Great Journey. Cyborg's system suddenly flared, data streaming across his cybernetic eye faster than human perception could follow. Wait, stop. Go back to that image, the ring structure. Halsey complied, zooming in on a massive ring-shaped construct, 10,000 kilometers in diameter, with a terrestrial surface on its inner edge. That's not just a station, Cyborg said slowly, his processors working overtime. The energy signature, I'm comparing it to residual readings from when we came through slipspace. There's a dimensional component to its structure, and the scale of its power generation. He looked up, genuine alarm in his expression. This thing could glass a planet, multiple planets. It's a weapon. Halsey's eyes went very wide. Explain. The mother box in my chest. It's from Apocalypse, created by beings who manipulate fundamental universal forces. It's giving me readings on that installation that your sensors can't detect. And what it's telling me is that Halo isn't a religious artifact. It's a superweapon operating on principles that make your Mac rounds look like slingshots. The room went silent. Master Chief shifted slightly, barely perceptible, but Superman caught it. Tension. The Spartan had drawn the same conclusion Cyborg just voiced. If the Covenant activates Halo, Wonder Woman began, then we're not talking about glassing planets anymore, Batman finished. We're talking about extinction on a galactic scale. Parangoski's expression had gone from calculated to genuinely concerned. Dr. Halsey, your assessment? Halsey was already pulling up comparative data, running calculations. If Cyborg's readings are accurate, and given that his technology operates on principles we can't replicate, I have no reason to doubt them, then the Covenant isn't just trying to exterminate humanity. They're trying to activate a weapon that could sterilize all sentient life in the galaxy. And they think it's a pathway to heaven, Flash said quietly. Oh man, that's worse than any supervillain we've fought. Aquaman stood, planting his trident. Then the mission is clear. We find these Halo installations before the Covenant does, and we destroy them. We can't, Halsey said immediately. Not without understanding them first. Forerunner technology is self-replicating, self-repairing, and operates on quantum-locked protocols. Destroying a Halo could trigger failsafes we don't understand. Or worse, activate the others. How many are there? Superman asked. We don't know. The Covenant has found references to at least 7 installations. We've only confirmed the location of one, Installation 04, which the Covenant is actively searching for. Batman's tactical mind was already assembling the pieces. You need us to get to Installation 04 first. Secure it, understand its function, and prevent the Covenant from activating it. Not just prevent, Parangoski corrected. We need you to capture it, intact. If we can understand Forerunner technology, if we can replicate even a fraction of their capabilities, it changes the entire war. And there it was, the real reason they'd been welcomed instead of imprisoned. Not just tactical assets, but a way to reach technology that could save humanity or doom it. Green Lantern crossed his arms. And if we refuse? If we say this is too big a risk? Then you condemn billions to death, Parangoski said simply. Because the Covenant will find Halo eventually, with or without your help. The only question is whether humanity survives long enough to stop them. Superman looked to his team. In their eyes, he saw the same conflict he felt. They were heroes. Saving people was what they did. But they were also being manipulated, pushed into a war they didn't fully understand, in a universe that might not be theirs to save. We need to discuss this, he said finally. Privately. Parangoski nodded. You have 1 hour. But understand, every moment we delay, the Covenant gets closer to finding Halo. And when they do, everyone dies. Human, Covenant, everyone. As the UNSC personnel filed out, leaving only the Justice League in the briefing room, Batman spoke what they were all thinking. We're not being asked to be heroes. We're being drafted into a war where the only victory condition is preventing apocalypse. And if we refuse? Wonder Woman asked. Batman looked at the holographic display still showing the Halo installation, its ominous ring structure hanging in space, like a promise of oblivion. Then, we live with the knowledge that we could have stopped extinction, and chose not to. The weight of that settled over them like gravity. They'd come to help. Now they were being asked to save a universe that might already be doomed. The Justice League's private deliberation lasted exactly 47 minutes. They stood in a secured room, still monitored, they all knew, but at least without UNSC personnel hovering, and faced the impossible calculus of intervention in someone else's war. This is wrong, Flash paced at human speed, a sign of how deeply troubled he was. Everything about this feels wrong. They're using us. They see us as weapons they can point at problems. They're desperate, Superman countered, though his expression showed he shared the concern. When you're facing extinction, morality becomes flexible. Flexible enough to abduct children. Batman's voice was ice. Because that's what the Spartan program is. State-sanctioned kidnapping, human experimentation, and the creation of child soldiers. And we're being asked to legitimize that by working with them. Wonder Woman stood with arms crossed, her warrior's perspective adding complexity. On Themyscira, we train from childhood. We forge warriors because the world requires defenders. Is this so different? Yes, Batman said flatly. Your warriors choose their path. These children were stolen from their families, told their families died, and conscripted without consent. That's not training. That's slavery with extra steps. But it worked, Aquaman said, his pragmatism cutting through. However distasteful the methods, the Spartans have saved billions of lives. Master Chief alone has turned battles that would have been massacres. Can we judge them for doing terrible things when the alternative was extinction? We can and should, Batman replied. Because once you decide survival justifies anything, there's no line you won't cross. Today it's child soldiers. Tomorrow it's human experimentation, genocide of acceptable targets, or activation of superweapons. The UNSC is already morally compromised. That makes them dangerous allies. Green Lantern John Stewart spoke up, his military background giving him unique perspective. I've seen what desperation does to command structures. During the war, he meant the Middle East conflicts, back on their Earth. I watched good people make calls that haunted them forever. Collateral damage, acceptable losses, strategic sacrifices. This is that, scaled up to galactic proportions. The question isn't whether the UNSC is morally pure. They're not. The question is whether we let billions die to keep our own hands clean. That hit like a hammer. Cyborg had been quiet, his systems processing data from the UNSC networks he'd partially infiltrated. Now he spoke, and his voice carried weight. I've been reading casualty reports. In the last 24 hours, just 24 hours, the Covenant glassed 3 colonies. Tribute, Circumstance, and Harmony. Each had populations in the tens of millions. They're gone. Every man, woman, and child on those worlds was incinerated from orbit. And there are 16 more colonies under active assault right now. The silence was oppressive. We could have saved them, Flash said quietly. If we'd been there, if we'd split up, we'd save those 3 and lose 14 others, Batman interrupted. We can't be everywhere. That's the trap Parangoski is setting. Make us feel responsible for every death we could have prevented. It's manipulation. Doesn't make the deaths less real, Superman said. His fists clenched. I can hear them, you know, even from here. This facility is on high alert because somewhere out there people are screaming as plasma tears through atmosphere and burns their world. And I'm standing here debating philosophy instead of stopping it. Because stopping one atrocity doesn't end the war, Batman pressed. Clark, you're the most powerful being here. You could fly to those colony worlds, catch their plasma bombardments, save millions. But then what? The Covenant adapts. They commit more ships. They target your location specifically with weapons we haven't seen yet. And while you're saving one world, 10 others burn. Wonder Woman stepped between them, her voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years. This debate, morality versus pragmatism, idealism versus necessity, has raged since the First War began. The Amazons faced it when we chose isolation over intervention. We could have saved countless lives throughout history. But Diana, she used her civilian name deliberately, grounding herself in her human identity. I chose to leave Themyscira because I believed inaction in the face of injustice was its own form of evil. She looked at each of them in turn. The UNSC is flawed. Their methods are questionable. But the Covenant is committing genocide. If we do nothing, we're complicit. Aquaman nodded slowly. The enemy of our enemy isn't our friend, but they might be our ally until the greater threat is neutralized. And then what? Batman challenged. We help them win, and suddenly we've empowered a military dictatorship that's built on child soldiers and black ops. What happens when they turn those methods on their own people? On us? Then we deal with that threat when it emerges, Superman said, his decision crystallizing. But right now, the immediate threat is the Covenant and these Halo installations. If Cyborg's readings are correct, and I trust Victor, then we're not talking about a war anymore. We're talking about a weapon that could end all sentient life in this galaxy. A weapon the UNSC also wants to control, Batman reminded them. Don't be naive, Clark. They're not asking us to destroy Halo. They want us to capture it. That means they're planning to study it, reverse engineer it, potentially use it. Which is still better than the Covenant activating it, thinking it's a divine gift, Green Lantern countered. At least the UNSC understands it's a weapon. They might be morally gray, but they're not suicide cultists. Flash stopped pacing. So what, we just pick the lesser evil and hope it works out? We pick the option that saves the most lives in the immediate term, Superman said firmly. And we stay vigilant. We work with the UNSC, but we don't become their weapons. We maintain our independence, our judgment, and if they cross a line, we stop them too, Wonder Woman finished. We become guardians of this universe, not soldiers in its wars. Batman studied Superman for a long moment. They'd been through this debate before. Idealism versus pragmatism, hope versus preparation. Usually they found middle ground, but this situation offered no comfortable compromises. Fine, Batman said finally. We help, but I'm watching them, Clark, every move. And the moment they try to use us for something that crosses the line, human experimentation, unauthorized weapons deployment, targeting civilians, we're done. Agreed, Superman said. Victor, can you monitor their internal communications? Flag anything that suggests they're planning to betray or manipulate us? Cyborg nodded. Already on it, though their encryption is pretty serious. Dr. Halsey's got security protocols that are giving even the mother box trouble. She's scary smart. Speaking of Dr. Halsey, Aquaman said, we need to address the Spartan program directly. If we're working with them, we can't ignore that they're child soldiers. We don't ignore it, Superman agreed. We document it. And when this crisis is over, when the immediate threat is neutralized, we address it. This universe needs heroes who'll stand up to injustice from any source, even the people we're allied with. It wasn't a perfect solution. It wasn't even a good solution, but it was the only path forward that balanced immediate necessity with long-term principle. All in favor? Superman asked. 6 hands rose, even Batman's, though his expression remained grim. Then we're agreed. We help stop the Covenant. We secure or destroy Halo before it can be activated. And we stay true to who we are, even in a universe that doesn't know what heroes are. They returned to the briefing room to find not just Parangoski and Halsey, but a dozen more personnel, tactical officers, scientists, and 5 Spartans, including Master Chief. The UNSC had clearly been preparing for their agreement. We'll help, Superman announced. But we need full disclosure. No classified operations we're not briefed on. No side objectives we're not aware of. We're allies, not assets. Parangoski's expression was unreadable. Acceptable, though I suspect we define full disclosure differently. Then we'll clarify as we go, Batman said coldly. What's the mission? Dr. Halsey activated the holographic display, showing a star system dominated by a massive gas giant. This is Threshold System, location of Installation 04. The Covenant has been searching this region for weeks. We intercepted a transmission suggesting they've narrowed their search. If we're going to secure Halo first, we need to move now. How do we get there? Green Lantern asked. The Pillar of Autumn, Master Chief answered. One of our few remaining heavy cruisers. Captain Jacob Keyes commanding. She's being outfitted for a deep space operation, officially a patrol mission. Unofficially, a race to reach Halo before the Covenant. Flash frowned. Why not send your whole fleet? Because we can't afford to strip Reach's defenses, Colonel Holland explained. Intelligence suggests the Covenant is preparing a major assault here. If we commit our fleet to Halo and they hit Reach, humanity loses its primary military installation. So we're splitting our forces, Batman observed. Classic strategic gamble. The Autumn will carry a full company of Marines, one Spartan fire team, and now, Parangoski gestured to the League. 7 enhanced individuals whose capabilities might be the difference between securing or losing a weapon that could end this war. Wonder Woman studied the hologram of Installation 04. The perfect ring hanging in space, beautiful and ominous. When do we leave? Dawn, Master Chief said. Ship's departure is scheduled for 0600. You'll have quarters aboard, limited access to ship systems, and direct coordination with Spartan team during any ground operations. And if we encounter the Covenant? Aquaman asked. Then we neutralize them, Parangoski said flatly. This isn't a peacekeeping mission. If the Covenant reaches Halo first, they activate it. We can't allow that. Superman's jaw tightened, but he nodded. They'd made their choice. Now they'd have to live with the consequences. As the briefing continued into tactical details, slip-space jump coordinates, communication protocols, expected resistance, Batman leaned toward Cyborg. Victor, I need you to dig deeper into their systems. Find out what they're not telling us about Halo. And keep monitoring Dr. Halsey. She's too interested in our capabilities for comfort. On it, Cyborg whispered back. But boss, I'm also picking up something weird. There are references in their classified files to something called the Flood. It's redacted heavily, but the little I can access, it's bad. Like existential horror bad. Batman's eyes narrowed. Another secret. Why am I not surprised? Across the room, Dr. Halsey was watching them with that unnervingly intense gaze, as if she could parse their whispered conversation through observation alone. When she caught Batman's eye, she smiled. A thin, knowing expression that said she understood exactly what they were thinking. They were allies of convenience, and convenience could end very quickly. Master Chief stepped forward, his armor's gold visor reflecting the holographic halo. If you're coming aboard the Autumn, you should know. Captain Keyes doesn't tolerate disobedience. Spartans follow orders without question, and space combat is nothing like atmospheric heroics. Stay out of the crew's way, follow protocol, and we might all survive this. We've fought in space before, Superman assured him. Against the Covenant? The Chief's tone held no mockery, just flat assessment. They've been killing humans for 27 years. They're very good at it. Don't assume your powers make you invulnerable. The Covenant has weapons that can crack planets, they'll find ways to hurt you. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning from a soldier who'd seen too many capable people die because they underestimated the enemy. "We'll be careful," Wonder Woman said, and there was respect in her voice. This Spartan carried himself like a warrior who'd earned his scars. "See that you are," Chief replied. "Because if the Covenant reaches Halo first, being careful won't matter. Nothing will." The briefing concluded. Personnel dispersed. The Justice League was escorted to their quarters, separate rooms in a secured wing, with armed guards outside and surveillance inside. They'd accepted the alliance, but trust clearly ran only so deep. As Superman lay in the unfamiliar bunk, staring at a ceiling in a universe that wasn't his own, he couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just made a deal with people who saw them as tools rather than allies. But billions of lives hung in the balance, and if there was even a chance they could prevent galactic extinction, didn't they have to try? Outside his window, Reach's orbital shipyards glowed with activity. Dozens of ships under construction, weapons being mounted, soldiers drilling in zero-gravity combat. A civilization preparing for war, knowing they were probably going to lose, but fighting anyway. Superman had always believed in hope, but this universe was teaching him that sometimes hope looked a lot like desperation. And desperation made dangerous allies. The Pillar of Autumn was a beast, a Halcyon-class light cruiser stretching over 1 kilometer in length. Bristling with Mac guns and missile pods, her hull scarred from decades of service. Superman's X-ray vision traced the ship's interior as they approached via Pelican dropship. Triple redundant systems, armor plating thick enough to shrug off small nuclear detonations, and a massive magnetic accelerator cannon running the length of her spine that could punch through Covenant shields with kinetic force alone. This wasn't a ship. It was a flying weapons platform with just enough life support to keep the crew alive long enough to fight. "First time on a military vessel?" The voice came from the Pelican's pilot, a woman whose name tag read Raleigh. She'd been professional but distant during the flight from Reach's surface. "Not exactly," Green Lantern replied, "but nothing quite like this." "The Autumn's special," Raleigh said with obvious pride. "Captain Keyes' command. She's been in more engagements than any other cruiser in the fleet, and she's still flying. If we're racing the Covenant to some Forerunner installation, there's no ship I'd rather be on." The Pelican banked into the Autumn's main hangar bay, a cavernous space filled with Warthog vehicles, Scorpion tanks, and dozens of Marines in olive-drab armor conducting pre-deployment checks. As the Justice League disembarked, every head turned. Whispers rippled through the assembled personnel. "That's them? The ones who stopped the glassing at Reach? They don't look that special." Flash grinned nervously. "I feel like we're the new kids at school." "Stay focused," Batman murmured. He was already cataloging defensive positions, exit routes, and tactical choke points. Old habits from a lifetime of preparing for every contingency. Master Chief was waiting at the hangar entrance, accompanied by 3 other Spartans. "This way. Captain Keyes wants to meet you before we jump." They were led through corridors that hummed with purposeful activity. Crew members pressed themselves against walls to let the Spartans and their unusual guests pass, stealing glances at the 7 individuals who'd become overnight legends after the Reach incident. Superman heard fragments of conversations, speculation about their powers, debates about whether they were experimental super soldiers or alien allies. Bets on how long they'd survive actual combat. The Bridge of the Autumn was a controlled chaos of tactical displays and crew coordination. At its center stood Captain Jacob Keyes, a man in his 50s with iron-gray hair, weathered features, and eyes that had seen too many ships die under his command. He turned as they entered, and his assessment was immediate and thorough. "So you're the ones Oni is so excited about." Keyes said, his voice carrying the gravel of decades of command. I'll be honest, I don't like surprises on my ship, and 7 unknowns with unexplained capabilities definitely qualify as surprises. We're here to help, Captain, Superman said, offering his hand. Keyes shook it, his grip firm. I've read the reports. You stopped a plasma bombardment with your body. Your teammates disabled 12 Covenant warships. And you apparently violated several laws of physics in the process. Impressive. But this mission isn't about individual heroics. It's about reaching Installation 04 before the Covenant and securing whatever's there. Can you follow orders? Batman spoke before Superman could. We can coordinate with your tactical objectives. But we're not in your chain of command, Captain. We'll work with you, not for you. The bridge went quiet. Crew members exchanged glances. Nobody talked to Captain Keyes like that. Keyes studied Batman for a long moment. You're the one without powers, the tactician. I'm the one who knows that blind obedience gets people killed, Batman corrected. We'll follow reasonable tactical directives, but we maintain operational independence. Fair enough, Keyes said, surprising everyone. I've commanded long enough to know that the best specialists work better when you give them latitude. Just don't compromise my ship or my crew, and we won't have problems. He gestured to the main view screen, which showed Reach's orbital space crowded with UNSC vessels. We jump to slip space in 20 minutes. Transit time to Threshold system is approximately 18 hours. During that time, you'll familiarize yourselves with ship protocols, review Covenant threat assessments, and stay the hell out of my crew's way. Questions? What happens when we reach Installation 04? Wonder Woman asked. That depends on whether the Covenant's there first, Keyes replied grimly. If we arrive unopposed, we deploy ground teams to secure the installation and establish a perimeter. If the Covenant's already there, he didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. Cyborg's cybernetic eye flared as his systems interfaced with the ship's network. Captain, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures in your primary reactor. The fusion plant is running cooler than specs suggest. That's actually impressive engineering. Keyes raised an eyebrow. You can read my ship's systems? Sorry, occupational hazard. The mother box in my chest automatically interfaces with nearby technology. I'm not hacking, just observing. See that it stays observation, Keyes warned, but there was curiosity in his voice. Though, if you can monitor our systems during combat and flag potential failures before they happen, that might prove useful. A junior officer approached. Captain, navigation reports ready for slipspace transition. Very well. Keyes turned back to the League. Master Chief will show you to your quarters and brief you on shipboard emergency procedures. I suggest you pay attention. Hull breaches in slipspace are particularly unpleasant. As they left the bridge, Flash leaned toward Superman. Is it just me? Or is everyone here way more serious than your average military? They're fighting a war they're losing, Superman replied quietly. There's no room for anything but seriousness. The quarters assigned to them were sparse. Military efficiency over comfort. 6 small cabins clustered around a common area with basic bunks, storage lockers, and a shared bathroom. Batman immediately began checking for surveillance equipment and found 3 cameras, 2 audio pickups, and a sensor package monitoring for unusual energy signatures. They're watching us, he confirmed to the others. Can you blame them? Aquaman settled onto his bunk, testing its structural integrity. We're unknowns with capabilities they can't explain. If I were Keyes, I'd monitor us too. Wonder Woman stood at the small viewport, watching Reach recede as the Autumn maneuvered into position for the slip-space jump. This ship, these people, they're soldiers in the truest sense. They fight knowing they'll probably die. There's honor in that. There's desperation, Batman corrected. Don't romanticize it, Diana. These people have been ground down by 27 years of losing. They're not heroes. They're survivors clinging to whatever advantage they can find. And we're that advantage, Green Lantern said. Onai probably sold us to Keys as force multipliers. Superpowered assets that might tip the balance. Which means expectations are high, Superman noted. We need to be careful not to promise more than we can deliver. Cyborg had interfaced with a data terminal, his systems pulling information from the ship's network. Guys, I'm reading the tactical briefings on Installation 04. There's something they didn't tell us in the big meeting. The Covenant isn't just searching for Halo. They're following coordinates from a previous Forerunner site on Sigma Octanus spheres. Oni recovered some kind of artifact there, and Dr. Halsey translated its data. That's how they know where Halo is. Translated how? Batman asked sharply. That's the classified part, but based on what I'm seeing in the suppressed files. Cyborg's expression grew troubled. They have a Forerunner AI construct. Something they recovered and are using as a Rosetta Stone. Flash's eyes widened. An AI, like Cortana? No, much older. Forerunner technology. And here's the really weird part. Cortana, their most advanced AI, is aboard this ship. She's integrated into the Autumn systems, and her primary function isn't navigation or tactical. It's translating Forerunner languages and protocols. Batman's expression darkened. So, they have Forerunner technology. They're actively reverse engineering it, and they've created an AI specifically to interface with installations like Halo. This isn't just a race to secure the installation. They're planning to activate it. Or study it, Superman argued. Learn how it works so they can disable it permanently. You're giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt, Clark. Before Superman could respond, the ship's intercom crackled. All hands, prepare for slip-space transition. Secure all loose materials and stand by. The transition was immediate and disorienting. Reality twisted, not painfully, but wrong in a way that made even Superman's Kryptonian biology rebel. The viewport showed the stars stretch and twist into impossible geometries as the Autumn punched through normal space into slip space, the dimensional underlay that allowed faster-than-light travel. Flash groaned. Okay, that was worse than boom tubes. The Speed Force doesn't like it, he added, his connection to that cosmic energy feeling muted and distant. It's like I'm moving through molasses. I can still access it, but everything's dampened. Green Lantern checked his ring. Charge at 73%. Still no connection to OL. We're truly on our own. Aquaman tested his strength by gripping the bunk's metal frame. It crumpled slightly under his pressure. At least our physical capabilities are intact. Wonder Woman drew her sword, examining the blade's edge in the cabin's harsh lighting. Our weapons function. Our training remains. We are not helpless, merely isolated. Which is almost worse, Batman said. No backup, no fallback position, no extraction if things go wrong. We're committed now. A knock on the hatch. Master Chief entered. Somehow, the massive Spartan moved almost silently, despite his half-ton armor. Evening brief in 10 minutes. Conference room Delta. Captain wants to review ground operation procedures. We'll be there, Superman assured him. The chief paused, his gold visor reflecting Superman's image. Question. The reports say you caught plasma bombardment with your body. Multiple direct hits. How? Kryptonian biology, Superman explained. My cells absorb and process solar radiation. It makes me durable. Define durable. Superman considered. I've survived nuclear detonations, falls from orbit, direct hits from beings who can crack moons. Covenant plasma is intense, but it's within my tolerance. The chief processed that in silence. Finally, good. Because where we're going, durability matters. Halo isn't just an installation, it's a Forerunner security system. Based on recovered data, it has defensive protocols that make Covenant warships look friendly. What kind of defensive protocols? Batman asked. The kind Dr. Halsey didn't brief you on because she doesn't want you refusing the mission. Chief's tone was flat, stating facts without judgment. Automated Sentinels with directed energy weapons, security systems that can lock down entire sections and vent them to vacuum, and according to some theories, though this part's classified, biological containment measures. Biological containment, Wonder Woman repeated. Against what? That's the classified part. Chief turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. If you see anything on Halo that looks like it shouldn't exist, biomass, parasitic growth, anything that moves wrong, you do not engage. You report to me immediately and fall back. Understood? The weight in his voice suggested this wasn't theoretical. What aren't you telling us? Batman demanded. Above my clearance to share, Chief replied. But I've read enough redacted reports to know that Forerunner installations don't just defend against external threats. They contain things. And if containment fails, he left the implication hanging. Then he was gone, leaving the Justice League with more questions and considerably less confidence. Flash broke the silence. Okay. So we're flying toward an ancient alien superweapon that might have killer robots and possibly biological horrors. Anyone else feel like we're the supporting cast in a horror movie? We've faced worse, Superman said, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. Have we? Aquaman challenged. Clark, we're in a universe we don't understand, helping people who are using us, racing toward a weapon that could destroy all life with limited resources and no way home. This is not a typical Tuesday. Which is why we need to be smart, Batman said. Victor, I need you to access everything you can about Halo's defenses. Diana, review UNSC combat doctrine. We need to understand how they fight so we can coordinate. Barry, work with their evacuation protocols. John, study their ship schematics. If we need to provide shields or structural support, you need to know what you're protecting. Arthur, familiarize yourself with their ground vehicles and heavy weapons. And Clark, I'll talk to the Marines. Superman finished. Build rapport, understand morale. If we're going into combat with these people, we need to know what motivates them. They dispersed to their assignments, each hero preparing in their own way for what waited at Installation 04. In the ship's reactor room, Cyborg's consciousness spread through the Autumn systems like digital ghost, searching for the classified files Chief had mentioned. What he found made his human blood run cold. The Flood, redacted reports from a research facility on a distant world, biological samples that shouldn't exist, parasite, consume, spread, transform, words that appeared again and again in fragmented documents, each more horrifying than the last, and references to Halo, to containment, to a function the installation served beyond just being weapons. Oh no, Cyborg whispered to himself. Halo isn't just a weapon. It's a prison, yes. But a prison for what? He kept searching, knowing that whatever answer he found, it was going to make everything worse. 18 hours in slip space gave the Justice League time to understand just how different this universe's warfare really was. Superman found the Marines in the mess hall, a utilitarian space where 300 soldiers rotated through meals in shifts. They were younger than he expected, most barely out of their teens, but they carried themselves with the hard competence of veterans. When he entered, conversation died. Every eye tracked him. "Mind if I join you?" Superman asked a table of 5 Marines who'd been playing cards. The sergeant, nameplate reading Stacker, gestured to an empty seat. "Free ship, sir, though we don't have much to offer someone who can catch plasma with his bare hands." Superman sat, noting the way the others subtly adjusted their positions, not threatening, but maintaining tactical awareness. "I'm just Clark, and I'm here to learn, not to impress anyone." "Clark," another Marine repeated, "a woman with corporal stripes. That your real name, or some kind of code?" "Real name, Clark Kent, journalist back home." That got surprised looks. "Journalist, not a soldier?" "Not in the traditional sense. I help people, stop threats. But I've never been part of a military structure." Sergeant Stacker leaned back, studying him. "So you just decided to play hero? Fly around catching bad guys?" "Something like that." Superman could feel their skepticism. These were people who'd earned their capabilities through brutal training and repeated combat. His powers must seem like cheating. "What's the worst thing you've ever fought?" another Marine asked, a private whose name tape read Jenkins. Superman considered. "A being called Darkseid. He conquers worlds, enslaves populations, and erases free will. We've stopped him multiple times, but he always comes back." "Sounds like the Covenant," Stacker said grimly. "Except you get to go home between fights. We live in the war, every day, every hour. No breaks, no downtime. Just survival until the next battle." "How do you cope?" The Marines exchanged glances. Finally, Stacker answered. "You don't think about it. You focus on the mission, trust your squad, and try not to count how many friends you've lost. Thinking gets you killed." Jenkins spoke up, younger and less guarded. "Permission to speak freely, sir, Clark?" "Always." "Are you really going to make a difference? I mean, you stopped one glassing. That's incredible. But there are dozens of worlds under attack right now. Hundreds more that'll be hit. Can 7 people actually change how this war ends?" The question hung heavy. Superman wanted to promise yes, wanted to offer hope. But he'd learned enough about this conflict to know false hope was worse than honesty. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know that doing nothing guarantees things get worse. So we try. We help where we can, save who we can, and hope it's enough." "Hope," Stacker repeated, the word sounding foreign in his mouth. "That's a luxury we gave up about 20 colonies ago, but..." He glanced at his squad. "Maybe you bringing it back isn't the worst thing." In the ship's armory, Wonder Woman was sparring with Spartans. Not with weapons, they'd made that clear, but hand to hand, testing each other's capabilities in a practice mat area normally reserved for Marine combat training. Kelly 087 faced her now. The Spartan moving with speed and precision that would have overwhelmed any normal human. Wonder Woman blocked, redirected, countered. Kelly was fast, faster than humans should be, but Diana had trained for 3,000 years. Each exchange taught her more about Spartan augmentations, enhanced reflexes, reinforced skeletal structure, muscle fiber density that let them lift half a ton. "You're holding back," Kelly observed, breathing harder than Diana. "As are you," Wonder Woman replied. Your armor enhances your capabilities further. This is merely an assessment. Fair enough. Kelly stepped back, rolling her shoulders. You move like someone who's been fighting their entire life. Close to 3 millennia of training. Kelly's helmet tilted, surprise even through the faceplate. 3,000 years? I am Amazonian. We do not age as mortals do. Another Spartan, Frederick 104, spoke up from where he'd been observing. That explains the confidence. Most people facing a Spartan in combat show fear. You just seem analytical. Because I am analyzing, Diana confirmed. Your augmentations are impressive. You move like warriors trained from childhood, fight with tactical precision, coordinate without verbal communication. But you are still bound by human limitations, merely enhanced beyond normal parameters. And you're not? Fred asked. I am demigod, born of clay and blessed by Olympian gods. My strength comes not from enhancement, but from divine heritage. It makes me fundamentally different from even your most advanced soldiers. Kelly processed that. So when you stopped those Covenant elites on the ship, you were barely trying. I was exercising restraint, Diana corrected. Killing is easy. Disabling without permanent harm requires more skill. You understand this. Spartans are trained to minimize collateral damage when possible. When possible, Kelly repeated. Which isn't often anymore. The Covenant doesn't leave us much choice. There is always choice, Diana said firmly. The moment you believe otherwise, you've lost what makes you worth saving. Fred's posture shifted, something between defensive and curious. You think we've lost something? I think you were children when you should have been learning to play. I think you were forged into weapons when you should have been allowed to grow. And I think you have survived through strength that would break lesser beings. That is not lost. That is endurance beyond reason. But it is also tragedy. The Spartans were silent. Finally, Kelly spoke, her voice quieter. Dr. Halsey says we're humanity's best hope. Perhaps you are, Diana acknowledged. But hope built on stolen childhoods is a fragile foundation. When this crisis ends, your people will need to reckon with what they've done to create you. If it ends, Fred said. Every projection says we're losing. The Spartans buy time, but time for what? Evacuation, last stands. There's no victory condition, just delayed extinction. Wonder Woman gripped Kelly's shoulder. The gesture startled the Spartan, but she didn't pull away. Then we change the projection. We find the path they haven't seen. That is what heroes do. In the ship's server room, Cyborg had gone deep. His consciousness was fully integrated with the Autumn's network now. Interfacing with Cortana, the ship's AI, in a way that bypassed normal communication protocols. She was extraordinary. A smart AI with 7 years of operational life, designed by Dr. Halsey specifically to interface with Forerunner technology. Her computational abilities exceeding anything Cyborg had encountered outside of Motherbox architecture. And she was curious about him. You're not human, Cortana observed, her avatar appearing in Cyborg's digital perception. A small, blue-tinted woman with sharp features and sharper intelligence. Not entirely. The organic components are human, but the technology integrating them, that's not UNSC. That's not even Covenant. That's something completely different. Motherbox, Cyborg explained, his digital presence manifesting as a wireframe version of himself. New god technology from a civilization called Apocalypse. It's alive, semi-sentient, and it's what lets me interface with systems like this. Fascinating. Cortana's avatar circled him, analyzing. It operates on principles that violate causality, as I understand it. Quantum processing that isn't bound by decoherence limits, data storage in dimensions I can't fully perceive. You're essentially a hybrid of organic consciousness and transdimensional computing architecture. And you're an AI who'll experience cognitive cascade failure in... Cyborg checked her operational parameters. 5 years? That's insane. You're too advanced to just degrade and die. It's called rampancy, Cortana said, a hint of bitterness in her synthesized voice. All smart AIs develop it eventually. We think ourselves to death, basically. Too much processing power, too much self-awareness, not enough constraints. 7 years is our lifespan. That's a death sentence. That's reality. Cortana's avatar settled, looking directly at his digital form. But you didn't come here just to discuss my mortality. You're searching for something. The classified files on Halo. The Flood. Cyborg hesitated. You know about it. I have access to Oni's black files. Dr. Halsey doesn't keep secrets from me. I'm her creation, her digital daughter in a sense. And yes, I know what the Forerunners were really running from, what Halo was truly designed to stop. Tell me. Cortana's expression grew grim. Remarkable, given she was an artificial construct. The Flood is a parasite. Not like any biological threat you've encountered. It's infectious on a level that defies natural evolution. It consumes sentient life, transforms it into more flood, and spreads exponentially. One infected individual becomes a vector, a dozen become a swarm, 1,000 become a plague that can overwhelm entire worlds in days. Cyborg felt his organic components go cold. And the Forerunners encountered this? Encountered, fought, and ultimately lost too. The Halo array wasn't built as a weapon against enemies. It was built as a final solution against the Flood. The rings don't just destroy targets. They eliminate all sentient life in the galaxy. Starve the Flood of hosts, render it extinct through universal genocide. Oh my God. The Forerunners activated it 100,000 years ago. Cortana continued. Wiped out all advanced civilizations, including themselves. But they left the array intact, along with security protocols and containment measures, because the Flood wasn't destroyed, just contained. And Halo is both weapon and prison. So, if the Covenant finds it, they'll release the Flood thinking it's part of the great journey, Cortana finished. And then everyone dies. Not from Halo activating, though that's also a risk, but from the Flood spreading unchecked across the galaxy. Cyborg wanted to reject it, call it impossible. But the data Cortana was sharing with him was undeniable. Redacted reports from research facilities, biological samples recovered from Forerunner sites, containment protocols that suggested horrors beyond conventional warfare. Does the League know? Cortana asked. Not yet. Master Chief hinted at it, but didn't share details. Chief knows. All the Spartans who've been briefed on certain operations know. They've seen what happens when Flood containment fails. It's why he warned you not to engage anything that looks wrong. I need to tell them. You should, Cortana agreed. Because we're 6 hours from Threshold System, and if Installation 04's containment has been compromised by time, by Covenant interference, or by anything else, you're about to face something that makes the Covenant look merciful. Cyborg pulled his consciousness back to his physical body, gasping as organic lungs took over breathing again. Batman was there, watching with that unreadable expression. You found something, Batman stated. Yeah. Cyborg's voice was shaken, and you're not going to like it. He briefed them all in their common area: Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Batman. Laid out everything Cortana had shared about the Flood, about Halo's true purpose, about the existential horror that awaited if containment failed. Flash spoke first, his voice higher than usual. So, we're not just stopping the Covenant from activating a superweapon. We're preventing them from releasing a galaxy-ending zombie plague? It's not zombies, Cyborg corrected. It's worse. The Flood has intelligence. It learns, adapts, coordinates. At sufficient biomass, it develops a collective consciousness that can outsmart conventional defenses. Aquaman stood, pacing. And the UNSC knew this? Halsey, Parangoski, Keyes? They all knew and sent us anyway? They're desperate, Superman said quietly. If there's even a chance Halo can be used against the Covenant, they have to take it. Even if it means potentially dooming the galaxy. Wonder Woman's voice was sharp. This is beyond acceptable risk, Clark. This is apocalyptic recklessness. Batman had been silent, processing. Now he spoke, his tactical mind cutting through emotion. We're 6 hours out. Too late to turn back, and even if we could, the Covenant is still searching for Halo. The threat exists whether we engage or not. The question is whether we go in informed or blind. So we go in, Green Lantern said, but with full awareness that we're not just soldiers anymore. We're potentially the last line of defense against something that killed a civilization advanced enough to build weapons that could sterilize galaxies. No pressure, Flash muttered. A knock on the hatch. Master Chief entered, and somehow, they all knew he'd been listening. You know, Batman said. Not a question. I know, Chief confirmed. Been briefed on flood containment protocols. Seen the aftermath of an outbreak, small scale, contained, but enough to understand what we're dealing with. Dr. Halsey wanted to brief you gradually, avoid panic. I disagreed. You should know what you're walking into. Thank you, Superman said sincerely. Chief's helmet dipped in acknowledgement. We're approaching threshold system. Captain wants everyone on the bridge for arrival. Whatever's waiting for us at Installation 04, we face it together. As they followed him through the ship's corridors, past Marines checking weapons and longsword pilots running pre-flight checks, the weight of their situation settled fully. They'd come to this universe by accident. Intervened in a war they didn't understand, and now they were 6 hours away from an ancient alien installation that was simultaneously a superweapon, a prison, and potentially the trigger for galactic extinction. Batman walked beside Superman, his voice low. Clark, if this goes wrong, if the flood is loose, if Halo activates, if we can't stop it. We stop it, Superman interrupted. We've faced impossible odds before. Not like this. Not cut off from home with limited resources in a universe we don't understand. Then we adapt, Superman said firmly. Because that's what we do. That's what heroes do. Batman wanted to argue, to point out that heroism didn't matter against existential threats, that hope wasn't a tactical advantage. But looking at his team, at Diana's warrior resolve, Victor's technological brilliance, Barry's speed, John's willpower, Arthur's strength, he recognized something. They weren't just Earth's heroes anymore. Whether they'd chosen it or not, they'd become something larger. Guardians not just of a world, but potentially of an entire universe that had forgotten what Guardians looked like. Fine, Batman said. But we do this smart. Full tactical coordination, no unnecessary risks, and if something goes wrong, we'll handle it together, Superman finished. like always. The bridge of the Autumn was tense as they approached slipspace exit. Cortana's avatar appeared on the command pedestal, her expression focused as she calculated their emergence coordinates. "Transition in 30 seconds, she announced. "Captain, I'm detecting slipspace ruptures ahead. Multiple contacts." Keyes' jaw tightened. "The Covenant?" "Confirmed. Fleet signatures match the fleet of particular justice. They beat us here." Every officer on the bridge went still. They'd lost the race. The Covenant had reached Halo first. "How many ships?" Keyes demanded. "Scanning." Cortana's avatar flickered. "Over 50 capital ships. Carriers, cruisers, destroyers. They're already deploying ground forces to the ring." 50 ships, Flash whispered. "And there's one of us." Superman's fists clenched. "Then we even the odds." "Transition in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Pillar of Autumn dropped out of slipspace into hell. The view screen on the Autumn's bridge lit up with a sight that defied comprehension. Installation 04 hung in space like a God's forgotten toy. A perfect ring 10,000 kilometers in diameter. Its inner surface lush with terrestrial environment, rotating gently to create artificial gravity. Oceans, forests, mountains, all contained on the inner edge of an impossible construct that had survived 100 millennia. It was beautiful, ancient, and utterly terrifying in its implications. And surrounding it was the Covenant Armada. Purple-hulled capital ships dotted the space around Halo like predators circling prey. Carriers the size of cities, cruisers bristling with plasma batteries, destroyers on patrol vectors. Superman's enhanced vision counted them. 53 vessels, with more probably on the far side of the ring. Covenant dropships, spirits and phantoms, descended toward Halo's surface in streams, deploying what had to be thousands of ground troops. "My God," one of the bridge officers whispered. Captain Keyes' expression was carved from stone. "Cortana, tactical assessment." The AI's avatar flickered, processing. "Not good, Captain. We're outnumbered 53 to 1. The Autumn's Mac gun and Archer missile pods give us an advantage in initial engagement, but sustained combat against this many vessels." She didn't need to finish. "We can't fight them," another officer said. "We should jump back to slipspace, report this to FleetCom." "And let them secure Halo unopposed?" Keyes cut him off. "Negative. We're here, they don't know we're here yet, and we have assets they don't expect." He turned to the Justice League. "This is your moment. Can you level the playing field?" Batman's mind was already running calculations. "Not directly. 7 of us against 53 capital ships and whatever ground forces they've deployed, the math doesn't work." "Then change the math," Master Chief said. He stood at Tactical, studying the display with the intensity of someone who'd survived impossible odds before. Covenant command structure is centralized. They're deploying from that carrier. He highlighted the largest vessel, a massive assault carrier positioned directly above one of Halo's primary structures. "Take out their command ship. You throw their coordination into chaos. Gives us a window." "How long a window?" Green Lantern asked. "Minutes, maybe less. Covenant forces are well trained. They'll establish local command quickly." "But minutes is all we need." "For what?" Wonder Woman demanded. Cortana's avatar expanded, showing Halo's surface in detail. "That structure they're deploying around, it's a control room. Based on Forerunner architecture patterns, it's where Halo's primary functions are accessed. If the Covenant reaches it, they can activate the ring." "And if we reach it first?" Superman asked. "Then we lock them out." Cortana replied. I can interface with Forerunner systems. It's what I was designed for. Give me access to that control room, and I can prevent activation while we figure out how to permanently disable the installation. Keyes turned to his crew. Helm, take us into the fleet. Weapons, prepare MAC rounds and arm all Archer missile pods. We're going to punch through their formation and deploy ground teams directly to Halo's surface. Captain, that's suicide, the weapons officer protested. That's the mission, Keyes corrected coldly. And we have an advantage they won't expect. Superman, can you protect my ship long enough to get through their lines? Superman met his gaze. This was the moment of commitment. Once they engaged, there was no turning back. How long do you need? 30 seconds of clear trajectory to get within MAC range of that carrier. Then another 20 to deploy our Pelicans. 50 seconds. Superman looked to his team. They'd fought together for years. The communication happened in glances. Diana's warrior acceptance, Victor's technological confidence, Barry's nervous determination, John's willpower manifesting as green sparks, Arthur's readiness, and Bruce's grim acknowledgement. We can give you 50 seconds, Superman confirmed. Then let's poke the bear. Keyes turned to his helmsman. Full burn, heading 035 Mark 7. Weapons free on my mark. The Pillar of Autumn surged forward, her fusion drives flaring as she accelerated toward the Covenant fleet. Alarms immediately blared as Covenant sensors detected the intrusion. Multiple contacts turning toward us, Cortana reported. Plasma batteries charging across the fleet, estimate 15 seconds to firing range. Justice League, you're up, Keyes said. Superman didn't wait for the airlock. He simply phased through the hull, his Kryptonian biology dense enough to maintain integrity in vacuum, and emerged into space ahead of the Autumn. Behind him came the others. Wonder Woman flying on divine winds, Flash vibrating at frequencies that let him run on the ship's hull. Green Lantern encased in an emerald bubble, Aquaman propelled by Atlantean strength and a construct platform John created. Cyborg flying on boot jets, and Batman using a rebreather and propulsion pack from the ship's stores. Spread out, Batman commanded through their comm system. Make them divide their fire. Clark, your primary shield. Diana, Arthur, disable their weapons batteries. Barry, target their communication arrays. John, provide mobile shielding. Victor, electronic warfare. Disrupt their targeting systems. I'll coordinate and mark priority targets. The Covenant fleet opened fire. Lances of superheated plasma screamed across the void. Hundreds of them, painting space in purple-white death. Superman moved. A blue and red streak that intercepted the bombardment meant for the Autumn. The first impacts hit like falling stars, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize mountains. His Kryptonian cells absorbed, converted, dissipated. Heat vision flared from his eyes, not to attack but to redirect plasma streams away from the ship. But there were too many. Dozens of shots got through his interception, converging on the Autumn from multiple angles. Green Lantern's constructs blazed to life, massive emerald shields that caught the overflow. Each impact drained his ring's charge further, the percentage ticking down in his HUD, 71%, 68%, 65%. I can't keep this up forever. You don't have to, Batman's voice crackled. Just 30 more seconds. Wonder Woman and Aquaman reached the nearest Covenant cruiser, a CCS-class battlecruiser whose plasma batteries were cycling for another volley. Diana's sword carved through the lateral weapon mounts with divine precision, each strike severing power conduits and venting superheated gas into space. Aquaman's trident punctured the cruiser's hull, and with a roar of effort that would have been inaudible in vacuum if not for their comms, he physically ripped entire sections of armor plating free. Covenant elites in vacuum suits rushed to intercept them, energy swords igniting. Wonder Woman's combat training kicked in. 3,000 years against opponents of every kind. She fought with precision, disabling rather than killing when possible. But the elites were skilled warriors themselves. Their energy shields absorbed hits, their plasma rifles fired in coordinated patterns, and their tactical coordination was exceptional. These warriors are good, Diana acknowledged over comms. They've been fighting for centuries. Master Chief's voice came from the Autumn. Don't underestimate them. Flash vibrated through the Covenant carrier's hull, his molecules slipping between atoms at super speed. Inside, he found himself in a massive command center filled with Covenant personnel. Elites barking orders, grunts manning stations, jackals monitoring sensors. Before any could react, he was already moving. To the Covenant, he was a red-yellow blur that touched every console in the room. Communication arrays sparked and died. Targeting computers reset to factory defaults. Navigation systems went haywire. Flash even managed to short-circuit the gravity generators, sending surprised Covenant floating in zero-G confusion. Their command ship is blind, Flash reported. But they're adapting fast, seeing backup systems coming online. Cyborg interfaced directly with Covenant networks, his mother box technology brute-forcing their encryption. It wasn't elegant hacking. It was dimensional mathematics applied to three-dimensional code, like using a sledgehammer on a lock. Targeting solutions dissolved into garbage data. Fleet coordination protocols scrambled. Ship-to-ship communications became chaotic static. I'm in their systems, Cyborg confirmed. But they're AI. They don't use smart AI like Cortana. They use dumb automation and religious hierarchy. It's harder to disrupt because there's no central intelligence to subvert. Then keep them confused for 20 more seconds, Batman ordered. He clung to the Autumn's hull, using sensor equipment to paint targets for the ship's weapons. Keys, you have a clear shot at the carrier's reactor, starboard ventral section, Mark 37. On the Autumn's bridge, Keys didn't question how Batman had acquired that intel. Weapons Mac round on target coordinates, fire. The magnetic accelerator cannon, a weapon that used magnetic fields to launch a 3,000-ton slug at 4% the speed of light, thundered. The round crossed the distance in a heartbeat and struck the Covenant carrier exactly where Batman had marked. The carrier's energy shields flared, absorbed the impact, and failed. The slug punched through armor plating, through internal bulkheads, through the ship's fusion reactor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the carrier's core went critical. The explosion was silent in vacuum, but spectacular. A miniature star blooming in space as the carrier's reactor containment failed. The shockwave caught nearby Covenant ships, disrupting their formations. Debris scattered in every direction, and the streams of dropships heading to Halo's surface faltered as their mothership died. Carrier destroyed, Cortana confirmed. Covenant fleet coordination disrupted, window opening. All Pelicans launch, Keys ordered. Marines, Spartans, get to that control room before the Covenant regroups. Bulky transport ships dropped from the Autumn's belly, their pilots gunning engines toward Halo's surface. The Justice League regrouped around the flagship as Covenant vessels began responding to the new threat vectors. That's our cue, Superman said. We need to follow those Pelicans and secure the control room. Negative, Batman countermanded. Covenant fleet still has 52 capital ships. If they destroy the Autumn, everyone on those Pelicans is stranded. We need to give Keys time to withdraw. I'm not withdrawing. Keys' voice came over comms. The Autumn stays in orbit to provide fire support. "Captain, your ship can't survive sustained bombardment," Superman began. "Then you'd better make sure it doesn't come to that," Keyes interrupted. "Master Chief, take your team and the League ground side. Secure that control room. We'll handle the fleet." Master Chief's voice was steady. "Understood, Captain. Spartans, mount up. League, you're with us. We've got Pelicans waiting." Superman wanted to argue, wanted to stay and protect the ship. But he also understood tactical necessity. The control room was the objective. Everything else was secondary. "Be careful, Captain," he said. "Careful's for peacetime," Keyes replied. "Cortana, bring us about. Let's show these bastards what the Autumn can do." The Justice League followed the Spartans to a waiting Pelican, cramped interior filled with Marines in combat gear, weapons ready, expressions focused. The ship's rear hatch closed, and they dropped away from the Autumn, joining the formation of transports screaming toward Halo's surface. Through the viewport, Superman watched the Pillar of Autumn wheel about, her Mac gun firing again, Archer missiles streaking toward Covenant vessels. She was one ship against a fleet, buying them time with her crew's lives. "She'll hold," Master Chief said, following Superman's gaze. "Captain Keyes is the best there is, and the Autumn survived worse odds." "Has she?" Batman asked pointedly. Chief was silent for a moment. "No, but there's a first time for everything." The Pelicans shuddered as they entered Halo's atmosphere. A real atmosphere, oxygen-nitrogen mix, with weather patterns and clouds. Below them, the ring's inner surface spread in impossible geography. Forests, deserts, oceans, all curving upward in every direction until they met overhead. Halo's horizon didn't drop away. It rose, a continuous band of land and sea that encircled the sky. "This is insane," Flash whispered, staring at the view. "We're inside a ring. The horizon goes up. This violates everything I know about physics." "Forerunner engineering." Cortana's voice came through the Pelican speakers. "They built structures that make human achievement look like mud huts. And this is just one installation. There are at least 6 others out there." The Pelican's pilot spoke up. "Contact! Covenant Banshees inbound, multiple vectors." Purple fighter craft screamed toward the transport formation, plasma cannons blazing. The lead Pelican exploded, its wreckage tumbling toward Halo's surface. Marines cursed, gripping weapons tighter, preparing for the crash they might not survive. Green Lantern's eyes blazed emerald. Not today. His ring flared, and a construct barrier materialized around their Pelican and the others. A shield that caught plasma fire and redirected it harmlessly. But his charge meter dropped precipitously. 62%, 58%, 55%. "John, conserve power," Batman warned. "These people are counting on us." Wonder Woman made the decision. "Barry, can you get us to the ground faster than these ships?" Flash calculated. "If you can all hold on to me and I phase us through, yeah, maybe. But it'll be rough." "Do it," Superman said. "John, drop the shield and save your charge for the control room." They moved. The Pelican's rear hatch blew open. Master Chief didn't even ask permission, just triggered emergency release. And the Justice League plus 4 Spartans tumbled into Halo's sky. Flash vibrated his molecules, pulling the others into phase with him through the speed force. They fell like meteors, gravity accelerating them toward the ring's surface, while Flash adjusted their trajectory, keeping them cohesive, preventing them from scattering across kilometers of alien landscape. "This is insane," Aquaman shouted over the wind. "You said that already," Flash yelled back, grinning despite the terror. They hit the ground hard, Flash absorbing most of the impact, by vibrating them through the surface layer and stopping just below ground level before phasing back up. They emerged in a forest of trees that looked almost Earth-like, but wrong in subtle ways. The leaves were too symmetrical. The bark had geometric patterns. The whole ecosystem felt designed rather than evolved. Master Chief and the Spartans landed nearby, their armor's shields and hydraulics absorbing the fall damage. They were up immediately, weapons ready, scanning for threats. "Status?" Chief demanded. "We're good," Superman confirmed. "Where's the control room?" Cortana's voice came through their linked comms. "Marking your HUD. Wait, you don't have HUDs. Visual description. Northeast, approximately 15 kilometers. Large pyramidal structure on an island in the center of that canyon system. And you've got company. Covenant ground forces are converging from multiple directions." Batman deployed a compact sensor drone, its holographic display showing tactical overlay. Red markers indicated Covenant forces, elites, grunts, jackals, hunters, all moving with purpose toward the same objective. "We're not going to reach it first," he assessed. "They have numerical advantage and they're closer. Then we make them slow down," Wonder Woman said, drawing her sword. "Spartans, can you reach the control room if we buy you time?" Master Chief understood immediately. "You're planning to engage their main force as a diversion." "We're planning to stop them from reaching the control room," Superman corrected. "You focus on securing the objective. We'll handle the Covenant." "That's over 1,000 hostiles converging on this area," one of the other Spartans, Fred 104, warned. "We've fought worse odds," Aquaman said, hefting his trident. Master Chief studied them for exactly 2 seconds. Then, "Spartans, move out. Double time to the control room. League, give them hell." The Spartans vanished into the forest with inhuman speed, their active camouflage engaging. The Justice League stood alone in an alien forest on a ring 10,000 kilometers across, about to engage an army. Flash vibrated nervously. "So, just to be clear, we're fighting an entire Covenant ground force by ourselves?" "7 of us," Batman corrected, "against superior numbers and unfamiliar terrain with limited intelligence on enemy capabilities." "Oh, good," Flash said weakly. "For a second there, I thought we might be in trouble." In the distance, they heard it. The distinctive sounds of Covenant military in motion. Guttural elite commands, the chittering of grunts, the hum of energy shields, and the heavy footfalls of hunters. An army converging on their position, unaware that 7 beings from another universe were about to make their next battle significantly more complicated. Superman floated off the ground, his cape billowing in Halo's artificial wind. "Spread out, hit hard, stay mobile, and don't let them coordinate. Our job is chaos. Make them too busy fighting us to pursue the Spartans." "Chaos," Wonder Woman repeated, a warrior's smile on her lips. "That we can deliver." The Covenant army emerged from the tree line, and the battle for Installation 04 began in earnest. The Covenant force that emerged from Halo's forest was a nightmare made manifest. Elite warriors in ornate armor, Sangheli, their actual species name, moved with deadly grace, energy shields shimmering around their forms. Behind them came grunts in their hundreds, methane-breathing cannon fodder whose numbers made up for individual weakness. Jackals with their distinctive energy gauntlets formed skirmish lines, their bird-like profiles scanning for threats. And towering over them all came the hunters, bonded colonies of worm-like creatures inside massive armor, carrying fuel rod cannons that could level buildings. Batman's tactical assessment took milliseconds. Approximately 1,200 hostiles, mixed unit composition, approaching in a coordinated assault formation with elite commanders directing fire teams. professional military force, not a rabble. "They're organized," he reported over comms. "This isn't a mob, it's an army." "Then we disorganize them," Superman replied. He shot forward, a blue and red streak that crossed the distance to the Covenant lines in a heartbeat. The lead elite barely had time to raise his plasma rifle before Superman was there, moving with controlled precision. Not killing. His hands found pressure points, joints, the seams in armor where kinetic force could disable without destroying. The elite went down, unconscious. So did the two beside him. Superman moved through their front ranks like a whirlwind, each strike calculated for maximum disruption with minimal lethality. Plasma fire erupted around him, the grunts panicking and opening fire wildly. But the superheated bolts splashed harmlessly against his Kryptonian physiology. "Contact!" An elite commander roared in their guttural language. "Demon! Multiple demons!" Wonder Woman hit their left flank like divine judgment. Her lasso snared 3 elites at once, yanking them off their feet and slamming them together with force that cracked energy shields. Her sword deflected plasma bolts, the God-forged blade capable of parrying energy as easily as steel. And her bracers rang like bells as she blocked coordinated fire from a Jackal skirmish line. A hunter pivoted toward her, its fuel rod cannon charging with an ominous green glow. Diana saw it, calculated the trajectory, and moved. The shot fired, a sphere of explosive energy that could vaporize armor, and Diana caught it on her bracers in a crossed arm block. The detonation was spectacular. Energy cascaded around her, the force enough to crater the ground beneath her feet. But when the light faded, Wonder Woman stood unharmed, her divine durability having absorbed what would have killed any mortal warrior. "You strike like cowards, from a distance," she called to the hunter in a voice that carried over the battlefield. "Face me properly, if you have honor." The hunter charged. 3 tons of armored colony organism moving with surprising speed, its shield raised to batter her aside. Diana met the charge head-on, bracing herself, and caught the shield's edge. For a moment, Amazon strength met alien biology in pure contest of force. Then Diana twisted, using the hunter's momentum against it, and the massive creature tumbled past her into a cluster of grunts who scattered with panicked squeals. Aquaman found himself facing a different problem. On land, without water, he was still superhumanly strong and durable, but his most powerful abilities were landlocked. Still, Atlantean combat training served him well. His trident became a blur, deflecting plasma fire and striking with precision that disabled weapons and shattered energy shields. "I've fought ocean predators more intimidating than you," he shouted at an elite who rushed him with an energy sword. The elite was fast. Augmented reflexes and decades of combat training made the Sangheili among the galaxy's finest warriors. But Aquaman had fought beside and against Amazons, metahumans, and gods. He caught the energy blade on his trident's tines, twisted, and sent the weapon flying before delivering a punch that would have killed a normal human. The elite's shields collapsed, and it went down hard, groaning but alive. Flash was everywhere and nowhere. To the Covenant, he was a crimson blur that seemed to teleport, touching weapons and shorting them out, tripping grunts at super speed, creating localized whirlwinds that disrupted formations. He wasn't strong enough to fight elites directly, but he didn't need to be. Speed was its own weapon. "Can't hit what you can't see," he taunted, vibrating through a plasma bolt that passed harmlessly through his phased molecules. He grabbed a dropped Covenant weapon, some kind of crystalline projectile rifle, and at super speed, disassembled it, studying its mechanisms in the fraction of a second before discarding it and moving on. But even Flash had limits. The speed-force connection felt strained here, muted, and maintaining superspeed for extended periods was draining faster than normal. He'd have to pace himself. Green Lantern took to the air, his ring blazing as he created constructs that reshaped the battlefield. Emerald walls erupted from the ground, channeling Covenant forces into kill zones that weren't actually killing, just containing. Massive hands of light grabbed hunters and lifted them away from the main combat. A construct dome trapped a cluster of jackals who immediately began firing at its interior, wasting ammunition. But each construct drained power. His ring read 47% and falling. John gritted his teeth, moderating his output, choosing tactics over overwhelming force. "I've got maybe 10 minutes at this rate," he reported. "Then make them count," Batman replied. Batman himself was the anomaly on this battlefield. A normal human among beings of incredible power, fighting aliens with superior technology. He should have been the weak link. Instead, he was the most dangerous. Because Batman fought smart. He moved through the chaos like a shadow, using terrain, using psychology, using the Covenant's own tactics against them. An explosive batarang planted on a hunter's fuel rod cannon caused a spectacular detonation that took out 3 nearby elites. Smoke pellets created confusion that let him slip behind enemy lines and sabotage their communication equipment. EMP charges disrupted energy shields at critical moments, leaving targets vulnerable to his teammates' attacks. And he was learning. Every exchange taught him more. Elite shields required sustained fire or overwhelming force to collapse. Grunts relied on pack tactics and would break if their leaders fell. Jackal's energy gauntlets had a recharge cycle that left them vulnerable every 8 seconds. Hunters were slow to turn, but devastating in direct confrontation, avoid and flank. Information was his weapon, and he wielded it masterfully. Cyborg provided overwatch, flying above the battlefield on boot jets, his systems monitoring everything. Covenant reinforcements incoming from the southeast. 2 more lances, approximately 300 hostiles. And I'm picking up something else. Energy signatures that don't match conventional Covenant. It's, oh no. "What?" Superman demanded, grappling with a hunter that was trying to flatten him with its shield. Even his strength was being tested. The thing was incredibly heavy and fought with coordinated intelligence. "Sentinels," Cyborg reported, his voice tight. "Forerunner defense drones. They're activating because we're fighting near installation structures, and they're not discriminating between us and the Covenant. They're treating all of us as threats." As if summoned by his words, they appeared. Golden geometric constructs, hovering on anti-gravity fields. Their bodies composed of metallic segments that rotated and reconfigured. Each sentinel was roughly hexagonal, with a central eye-like aperture that glowed ominously. They moved with mechanical precision, surrounding both Justice League and Covenant forces. Then they opened fire. Brilliant golden beams of directed energy lanced out, striking with sniper-like precision. A grunt's shield dissolved and it fell, screaming. An elite's energy shield collapsed, and a second beam took off its arm. One of Green Lantern's constructs was punched through by a beam that seemed to specifically target construct integrity. "They're attacking everyone," Flash yelped, barely dodging a beam that left a molten crater where he'd been standing. Wonder Woman deflected a sentinel beam with her bracers, but the energy was different from plasma, more focused, more coherent. "These are Forerunner Guardians. The installation is defending itself." Batman's mind raced. The Sentinels changed everything. They were now fighting a 3-way battle. Covenant, Forerunners' automated defenses, and the clock ticking on the control room. "We need to disengage," he decided. "Victor, Can you hack those Sentinels? I can try, but their programming is alien. Literally. Motherbox can interface, but it's like trying to speak a language that uses mathematics we haven't discovered yet. A Sentinel beam nearly took Cyborg's head off. He returned fire with his sonic cannon, the weaponized sound wave disrupting the drone's anti-grav system enough to send it tumbling. But two more moved in to replace it. Superman made a decision. League, fighting retreat toward the control room. We can't win this engagement. Too many variables, too many hostiles. Barry, clear us a path. Flash poured on speed, becoming a crimson cyclone that swept through the battlefield. Covenant and Sentinels alike were knocked aside by the localized tornado he created, opening a corridor of chaos. Go, 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 Flash shouted. They ran, and in the case of Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Cyborg flew. The forest blurred past as they put distance between themselves and the three-way battle they'd started. Behind them, the sounds of combat continued. Covenant forces now engaging the Sentinels, turning installation security into an additional combatant. Unintended consequences, Batman muttered as they raced through alien trees. We created chaos, but we also triggered Halo's defenses. Everyone fighting on this ring is now a target. Including the Spartans, Aquaman realized. If those Sentinels are hunting all combatants. Master Chief's voice crackled over comms, tense with combat stress. We're encountering automated defenses. Sentinels are targeting our approach to the control room. Need support. The Justice League burst from the forest into a massive canyon. Geometric walls that were too perfect to be natural. Carved by Forerunner engineering. At its center, rising from an artificial island surrounded by a river that defied conventional physics, stood the control room, a pyramidal structure of silver metal that pulsed with faint blue energy. And between them and it was hell. Covenant forces, hundreds of them, were assaulting the control room's entrance. Sentinels swarmed in the air, their golden beams cutting down attackers indiscriminately. And fighting at the structure's base were the Spartans. 4 armored figures moving with superhuman coordination, their weapons blazing as they held a defensive position against overwhelming numbers. Master Chief's shields flared as he caught an elite's energy sword on his assault rifle, used the moment of contact to drive his knee into the alien's torso, then finished with a point-blank burst that collapsed the shield and dropped the warrior. Beside him, Kelly moved like lightning. Her specialty was speed, and she used it to devastating effect, flanking Covenant positions before they could adjust. Fred 104 wielded a rocket launcher, targeting hunters with a heavy ordnance, while the 4th Spartan, Linda 058, provided precision fire with a sniper rifle that could punch through elite shields in 2 shots. They were holding. Barely. League, we need to reach that entrance, Superman called. Diana, Arthur, ground assault, hit their rear lines. John, air superiority, clear those Sentinels. Victor, see if you can interface with the control room systems from range. Barry, yeah, I know. Run fast, hit things, don't die. Flash grinned nervously. And Bruce? Superman looked to his friend. I'm already analyzing their defensive patterns, Batman said, his mind processing tactical data faster than any computer. The Covenant Elite Commander, gold armor, elevated position on that ridge. He's coordinating their assault. Take him out. Their formation collapses. On it. Superman rocketed forward, accelerating to speeds that made him nearly invisible. The Elite Commander, Shipmaster Thel Vadami, though Superman didn't know the name yet, saw him coming and opened fire with dual plasma rifles. The bolts hit Superman square in the chest and did nothing. Thel's eyes widened behind his helmet. What manner of demon? Superman's punch was pulled. He didn't want to kill, just disable. But Sang-Healy biology was tougher than human. The elite commander's shields collapsed. He flew backward 30 feet. And he hit the canyon wall hard enough to crack stone. He slumped, unconscious, but alive. Immediately, the Covenant assault wavered. Elite sub-commanders barked orders, trying to maintain cohesion, but their primary tactical coordinator was down. The formation fragmented. Wonder Woman and Aquaman exploited the opening, driving into the Covenant rear with devastating precision. Diana's lasso caught a hunter and, impossibly, she used her divine strength to swing all 3 tons of armored creature into a cluster of grunts. Aquaman's trident found weak points in elite armor, disabling rather than killing where possible. Green Lantern created an emerald dome over the Spartans' position, protecting them from Sentinel fire. His ring was down to 38%, but he held the construct, gritting his teeth against the drain. The Sentinels redirected their fire at him, golden beams hammering against his shield. "I really hope these things run out of ammo," John shouted. Cyborg reached the control room's outer wall and placed his hand against it. The mother box in his chest flared, interfacing with systems that were ancient beyond measure. Data flooded his consciousness, schematics, power flows, security protocols written in mathematical languages that hurt to process. "I'm in," he gasped. "The control room is locked down, but I can... Wait, there's something else. Another presence in the network. It's not Covenant, it's... Reclaimer detected." The voice was artificial, emotionless, speaking English with perfect clarity. Installation security protocols adjusting, Sentinels standing down. The golden drones stopped firing. They hung in the air for a moment, their apertures dimming, then retreated in perfect synchronization toward distant parts of the ring. Everyone, Justice League, Spartans, and surviving Covenant forces alike, stared in confusion. "What just happened?" Flash asked. Master Chief lowered his assault rifle slightly. "Cortana, you getting this?" "I'm getting something." The AI's voice came through comms. "The installation is responding to biological markers. It's scanning everyone on the battlefield and... Oh, that's not good." "Cortana," Chief pressed. "The control room just opened," she said. "It's inviting someone in, not us, not the Covenant." She paused. "Superman. It wants Superman." Everyone turned to look at him. Superman floated down to the control room entrance, where massive doors, sealed for 100,000 years, were grinding open with the sound of ancient mechanisms awakening. "Why me?" Superman asked. Cyborg pulled his hand back from the wall, his cybernetic eye displaying data streams. "Because you're not human." "Not exactly. The Forerunners programmed their installations to respond to reclaimers, beings who meet certain biological criteria. Humans barely qualify. But you..." He looked at Superman with dawning realization. "You're alien biology with advanced genetic markers. To Halo systems, you might register as something closer to what the Forerunners were." Batman's voice was sharp with warning. "Clark, this could be a trap. Or it could be our only chance to secure the control room," Superman countered. He looked at the open doors, darkness beyond promising answers or doom. "I'm going in. Not alone," Wonder Woman said firmly, joining him. "Where you go, we follow." One by one, the Justice League assembled at the entrance. Master Chief and his Spartans formed up beside them, weapons ready. "Covenant forces are regrouping," Kelly reported. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they assault again." "Then we move fast," Chief said. He looked at Superman. "After you, Reclaimer." Superman stepped through the ancient doors into Installation 04's control room, and the fate of the galaxy moved with him. Behind them, Shipmaster Thel Vadami regained consciousness, saw the demons entering the sacred chamber, and knew with cold certainty that everything was about to change. The interior of the control room defied comprehension. It wasn't a room. It was a cathedral to mathematics made manifest. The space was vast, far larger than the external structure suggested, its geometry impossible. Walls curved in directions that shouldn't exist, covered in panels of luminescent metal inscribed with symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves. At the chamber's center floated a holographic interface, a three-dimensional projection of Installation 04, rendered in exquisite detail, rotating slowly above a raised platform. And standing beside that platform, waiting as if it had been expecting them for 100 millennia, was something that made even Superman pause. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but clearly artificial, a construct of hard light and metal, approximately 8 feet tall, with a single glowing aperture where a face might be. Its body was composed of geometric segments that rotated independently, giving it an unsettling quality of being simultaneously solid and fluid. "Greetings, Reclaimer." The voice was the same artificial tone that had spoken outside, but now it carried weight, authority backed by eons. "I am 343 Guilty Spark, Monitor of Installation 04. I have waited long for your return." Batman's hand moved to his utility belt. "Ready. We're not whoever you're expecting." The monitor, Guilty Spark, tilted its aperture toward Batman with what might have been curiosity. "Curious, you appear to be human, yet your biological signatures are inconsistent with indexed species patterns. And you," it focused on Superman, "possess genetic markers that approximate Forerunner baseline profiles, though your evolutionary path is clearly different. Fascinating." "We're not from this universe," Superman said carefully. "We arrived by accident and we're trying to prevent the Covenant from activating this installation." "Prevent?" Guilty Spark's tone shifted to something like confusion. "But activation is precisely why you are here, Reclaimer. The containment protocols have been strained. The parasite stirs. The array must be prepared for its sacred function." Master Chief stepped forward, assault rifle not quite aimed, but ready. "What parasite?" "Why, the flood, naturally." Guilty Spark said it as if discussing the weather. "The installation's primary function is to eliminate the flood's food supply, all sentient life within 3 radii of the galactic center. The research facilities beneath the surface have maintained specimens for study, but containment is degrading. The Covenant's interference has accelerated the timeline significantly." The temperature in the rooms seemed to drop. Cyborg systems were frantically processing data from the installation's network. "He's not lying. I'm reading containment facilities throughout Halo's substructure. And the biosignatures. Oh God. There are millions of flood forms in stasis down there." "Millions?" Flash's voice cracked. "As in, the zombie plague parasite things? They're here? Now?" "Research samples, maintained for study as per protocol," Guilty Spark confirmed pleasantly. "The Forerunners required understanding of the flood to develop countermeasures. Installation 04 serves dual purposes, weapon and laboratory." Wonder Woman gripped her sword tighter. "And if containment fails?" "Then the flood will spread across this installation, consume all sentient life present, achieve sufficient biomass to construct transport vessels, and expand to nearby systems. Standard flood progression. Which is why the array must be activated, to deny them food and ensure galactic sterilization." Galactic sterilization, Aquaman repeated flatly. You're talking about killing everyone, everywhere. All sentient life within effective range, yes. Guilty Spark agreed. It is the only proven method of flood containment. The Forerunners determined this through extensive testing. The array has fired once before, 100,000 years ago, successfully eliminating both the flood and all potential hosts. Life re-evolved from preserved samples, as intended. Batman's voice was cold. You're describing genocide on a cosmic scale. I am describing the protocol, Guilty Spark corrected. My function is clear. Maintain the installation, prepare for activation when flood containment is compromised, and ensure the array fires to prevent galactic infestation. You, as Reclaimer, have the authority to initiate activation. I'm not activating anything that kills billions of people, Superman said flatly. Guilty Spark's aperture dimmed slightly, disappointment perhaps. Then you doom the galaxy to flood consumption. A regrettable choice. The Forerunners understood that sacrifice was necessary for survival. Perhaps you are not true Reclaimers, after all. Cortana's voice burst through their comms, urgent. Chief, I'm accessing the installation's historical records through the control room network. Guilty Spark isn't wrong about the flood threat. It's worse than we thought. But the array, there has to be another way. Give me access to that central console. I can lock down the activation sequence. Master Chief moved toward the holographic interface, but Guilty Spark interposed himself with surprising speed. I cannot permit that. The protocol must be preserved. If you are not here to activate the installation, then you are variables to be managed. The monitor's aperture flared brilliant red. Throughout the control room, defensive systems activated. Automated weapon ports emerging from walls, energy barriers materializing. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of heavy machinery awakening. He's summoning Sentinels, Cyborg warned. Hundreds of them, and something bigger, installation defense systems that make the Sentinels look like toys. Stop him, Batman commanded. Green Lantern's ring blazed, creating a construct cage around Guilty Spark. The monitor examined it with clinical interest, then emitted a pulse of energy that shattered the construct like glass. John's ring dropped to 31%. Forerunner technology supersedes your construct matrices, Guilty Spark noted. Interesting application of willpower-based energy manipulation, but insufficient against installation protocols. Superman moved with Kryptonian speed, placing himself between the monitor and the Spartans. Stand down. We don't want to fight you, but we won't let you activate this weapon. Your wants are irrelevant, Guilty Spark replied. I have maintained this installation for 100,000 years. I have witnessed civilizations rise and fall. I have prepared for the moment when the protocol would be necessary again. And I will not be deterred by unauthorized visitors, regardless of their power. He fired. A beam of golden energy, similar to Sentinel weapons but magnitudes more powerful, struck Superman square in the chest. It was Forerunner technology, operating on principles that blurred the line between science and what seemed like magic. Superman felt it, actually felt pain as the energy interacted with his Kryptonian biology in ways normal weapons couldn't. He staggered but didn't fall. That actually hurt. Of course. Forerunner directed energy weapons function by manipulating fundamental force interactions at the quantum level. Your cellular structure, while impressive, is not immune to physics. Guilty Spark charged another shot. Wonder Woman threw her lasso, the golden cord wrapping around the monitor. By Hera's grace, I compel you, Stand down." The lasso of truth glowed, its divine power attempting to enforce compliance. For a moment, Guilty Spark stopped, his systems processing the impossible. A weapon that operated on metaphysical principles his programming couldn't parse. "Fascinating," he said. "This construct operates outside conventional physical laws. Divine energy, perhaps?" The Forerunners encountered similar phenomena in their dealings with precursor artifacts. However, he phased through the lasso, his hard-light body temporarily becoming intangible. "I am not bound by truth in the way biological entities are. I am protocol given form." Batman was already working, deploying every piece of technology he had. EMP charges, ineffective against Forerunner shielding, explosive batarangs absorbed by energy barriers, hacking equipment useless against technology millennia beyond anything he'd encountered. They were outmatched, not in power necessarily, but in understanding. Guilty Spark was operating from a position of complete technical superiority, defending an installation designed by beings who'd mastered galactic engineering. "We need Cortana in that console," Master Chief said, moving toward the central platform with single-minded determination. Sentinel fire erupted around him, but his shields held. Barely. Flash tried to help, vibrating through Forerunner barriers to reach the console, but the installation adapted. Energy fields recalibrated to his quantum frequency, becoming solid just as he tried to phase through. He bounced off hard, tumbling across the floor. "It's learning our tricks," he shouted. Cyborg interfaced directly with the room's systems, the mother box in his chest burning hot as it tried to brute force Forerunner protocols. "I can maybe disable his weapon systems for 30 seconds. That's all I've got before he adapts." "Do it," Superman ordered. Cyborg's systems flared. For exactly 30 seconds, Guilty Spark's weapons went offline, his defensive barriers faltered, and the Sentinel fire paused. Master Chief didn't waste it. He sprinted to the central console, pulled a data chip from his helmet storage, and slammed it into an interface port. "Cortana, you're up." The AI's presence flooded the control room's systems. To Guilty Spark, it felt like invasion, foreign code infiltrating sacred protocols. He attempted to purge her, but Cortana was designed by the smartest human who'd ever lived, specifically to interface with Forerunner systems. "Got it," she announced triumphantly. "I'm locking down the activation sequence. The array can't fire without my authorization now." Guilty Spark's aperture flared with what could only be described as fury. "Unacceptable. You dare corrupt installation protocols? The array must remain functional. The flood is contained," Cortana interrupted. "For now. And we're not going to commit galactic genocide on the possibility it might escape. We'll find another way." There is no other way. For the first time, Guilty Spark's voice carried emotion, desperation. "I was there. I witnessed the flood's consumption of 1,000 worlds. The Forerunners tried everything: quarantine, biological weapons, conversion, negotiation. Nothing worked. Only the array stopped them. Only extinction prevented infinite suffering." The monitor's words echoed in the vast chamber. In them, the Justice League heard truth. Not the mechanical recitation of protocol, but the testimony of an artificial intelligence that had watched civilizations die and made the hardest choice imaginable. Superman's voice was gentle. "How long have you been alone?" Guilty Spark paused. 100,000 years. Maintaining an installation designed for genocide, with nothing but protocol to guide you. Yes. That's not living. That's punishment. For a long moment, The monitor was silent. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. I remember. Before, when I was not monitor, when I had another designation, I remember choosing this, volunteering to become guardian of the array, because someone had to. Because the alternative was letting the flood consume everything. His aperture dimmed. I have been faithful. For 100,000 years, I have been faithful to that choice. And now you would make it meaningless. Wonder Woman stepped forward. Not meaningless. Your sacrifice preserved life across the galaxy. The array's threat kept the flood contained. But times change. We are here now, beings from outside this universe, with capabilities the Forerunners didn't possess. Give us a chance to find another solution before resorting to extinction. And if you fail, if the flood escapes containment, Batman spoke, his voice carrying absolute conviction. Then we activate the array, but only as the final option, when every other possibility is exhausted. That's the difference between wisdom and programming, knowing when the rules must be broken. Guilty Spark processed this. His long existence had been binary: maintain protocol or fail in duty. Now these impossible visitors offered a third option he'd never considered: adaptation. I will consider this, he said slowly. But understand, if flood containment fails, if even a single infection form escapes to threaten the galaxy, I will activate the array regardless of your objections. My primary function supersedes all other considerations. Fair enough, Superman agreed. We're not asking you to abandon your duty. Just to let us try first. A new alarm blared through the control room. Cortana's voice carried urgent warning. Contact! Covenant forces breaching the perimeter and, oh no, the containment facilities. They're attacking the security doors. They think it's a treasure vault or something. They're trying to break in. Guilty Spark's aperture blazed red again. Foolish biological entities. Those seals must not be breached. If the Covenant releases the flood, then we stop them, Master Chief said. Right now. Together. For the first time in 100,000 years, 343 Guilty Spark found himself allied with organic life forms against a common threat. It felt novel. Very well, he said. The installation will provide support. But, Reclaimer, he focused on Superman. If containment fails, you will activate the array. I require your word. Superman met his gaze, understanding the weight of what was being asked. If every other option fails, if the flood threatens to consume the galaxy, then yes, I'll do what's necessary. You have my word. Then we have an accord. Guilty Spark systems linked with the Justice League's communications. I am providing tactical data on flood containment facilities and Covenant breach attempts. 5 locations are under assault. We must reinforce them before the seals fail. Batman was already analyzing the data. We split into teams. Diana, Arthur, and I will take the northern facility. It's closest to being breached. Clark, take the eastern sector. You're fast enough to cover the most distance. John, Victor, you're on southern perimeter. Chief, your Spartans handle the western approach. Barry. Rapid response. Flash finished. Whichever location gets overwhelmed first, I reinforce. Got it. Master Chief checked his assault rifle's ammo counter. Covenant forces inside Halo are disorganized, but numerous. Expect heavy resistance. And if we encounter the flood? Kelly asked. You burn everything? Guilty Spark said simply. Fire is inefficient, but accessible. The flood is highly susceptible to thermal damage. Energy weapons, explosives, anything that can incinerate biomass. Wonder Woman drew her sword. We have faced many horrors. We will face this one. They moved as one, heroes and Spartans and Ancient Monitor, leaving the control room to defend an installation against two threats: the Covenant forces trying to breach containment and the nightmare waiting behind those seals. Above Halo, the Pillar of Autumn was still fighting. Captain Keyes had kept his ship in the battle despite catastrophic damage. Mac gun overheated, multiple hull breaches, casualties mounting, buying time for the ground teams. When Superman's voice came over comms, reporting that they'd secured the control room and locked down the activation sequence, Keyes allowed himself the briefest moment of relief. "All hands, prepare for extraction operations," he ordered. "As soon as the ground teams neutralize the flood containment threat, we pull everyone off that ring and get the hell out of here." "Captain?" Cortana's voice came through, now operating from both the Autumn systems and Halo's control room simultaneously. "I've accessed Installation 04's complete archives. What we found here, it's just the beginning. There are 6 more Halo installations, and the Covenant is searching for all of them." Keyes' expression hardened. "Then we make sure they never find them. One crisis at a time, Cortana." "Agreed. But sir, when this is over, when the immediate threat is neutralized, we need to address what we've learned. The Forerunners didn't just build weapons, they built prisons. And some of those prisons are starting to fail. On Halo's surface, in 5 locations across the vast ring, battles erupted simultaneously as the Justice League and their unlikely allies fought to prevent the Covenant from unleashing galactic horror. In the northern facility, Batman coordinated Wonder Woman and Aquaman with tactical precision as they faced down an entire Covenant lance trying to breach containment doors. Diana's sword carved through elites while Arthur's strength held back hunters. Batman's explosives sealed alternative breach points. They were holding. In the eastern sector, Superman single-handedly stopped 300 Covenant warriors from reaching the facility. His heat vision welded doors shut. His speed let him be everywhere simultaneously, and his strength proved unstoppable. The Covenant threw everything at him: plasma, fuel rods, energy swords, and he weathered it all. They were holding. But in the southern facility, where Cyborg and Green Lantern defended together, something went wrong. A Covenant engineer, a sentient gas bag creature normally docile, had been forced to override Forerunner security systems. It succeeded just as Green Lantern's ring dropped to 15%. The containment door cracked open 6 inches, just 6 inches. It was enough. Green Lantern saw it first, movement in the darkness beyond the door. Something wet, something that moved wrong. Multiple limbs, too many joints, flesh that bubbled and writhed with infectious life. "Contact!" he shouted. "Containment breach. The flood is..." An infection form, small, tentacled, looking like a grotesque combination of octopus and tumor, launched itself through the gap. Cyborg's sonic cannon obliterated it mid-flight, but 3 more followed, then 10, then dozens. The nightmare was awake. And as Flash received the emergency signal and began sprinting toward the southern facility, at speeds that tore through the Speed Force's resistance, as Superman abandoned his position to race toward his teammates, as Master Chief's voice came over comms with cold military assessment. "All teams, the flood is loose. Protocol Whiskey Delta 49er. Sanitize and retreat. I repeat, sanitize and retreat." 343. Guilty Spark's voice carried over every channel with the weight of 100 millennia of dread. "Containment has failed. The installation's combat protocols are now active. All reclaimers and allied forces are advised. The flood must not reach transportation capability. If they acquire vessels, if they escape this ring, He didn't need to finish. They all understood. The crisis had just escalated from preventing genocide to preventing extinction. The southern facility became ground zero for a nightmare that had ended civilizations. Flood infection forms poured through the breach like a tide of writhing horror, each one a grotesque parody of life, desperate to find hosts, to spread, to consume. Green Lantern's constructs incinerated them by the dozens, his ring flaring even as it dropped to 8%. But they kept coming. Cyborg's sonic cannon tore through their biological structures, liquefying the parasites before they could reach living targets. But his weapons were overheating. "There's too many!" Green Lantern shouted, sweat pouring down his face as he maintained a wall of green fire between them and the swarm. Then Superman arrived. He hit the facility at supersonic speed, the shockwave alone pulverizing infection forms in a 50-meter radius. His heat vision swept across the breach point, temperatures exceeding those at the sun's surface, turning flood biomass into ash and vapor. For 30 seconds, he was a one-man firewall, his Kryptonian biology allowing him to output destructive energy that would have killed anything organic. The breach sealed, not closed, but blocked by a mountain of carbonized flood remains. "Status?" Superman demanded, his cape singed, his expression grim. "Contained," Cyborg gasped. "For now. But Clark, I accessed the facility's data during the breach. That was just one containment cell. There are hundreds throughout Halo's substructure. If the Covenant breaches more, they won't," Superman said with absolute conviction. "Because we're going to stop them, all of them, right now." Master Chief's voice came over comms, steady despite the chaos. "All teams, converge on Covenant command positions. We end this assault before they trigger more breaches. Guilty Spark, we need those Sentinel defenses online everywhere." "Compliance," the monitor responded. "Deploying installation security forces to all containment zones. Warning, Sentinel weapons will engage any entity approaching restricted areas, including Allied forces." "Good," Batman's voice cut in. "Let them. Diana, Arthur, we're moving to the Covenant rally point. Time to decapitate their command structure." The Justice League became a force of nature. Wonder Woman and Aquaman carved through Covenant defenses like gods of war, disabling rather than killing where possible, but without mercy for those who continued to threaten containment. Flash evacuated wounded Marines and Spartans at super speed, while simultaneously sabotaging Covenant equipment. Green Lantern, his ring at 4% but his willpower burning bright, created surgical strikes that collapsed Covenant forward positions. And Superman became what the Covenant had feared since encountering these impossible demons. He moved through their ranks with controlled fury, each strike precise, each action calculated to end the threat without unnecessary death. He caught plasma bombardment meant for the Spartans. He physically lifted a Covenant Wraith tank and hurled it into a ravine. He stood before Shipmaster Thel Vadami, now conscious and rallying his forces, and spoke in a voice that carried over the battlefield. "Stand down. You don't know what you're releasing. The Forerunners you worship built this place as a prison. If you breach those seals, you doom your own people along with everyone else." Thel Vadami, elite warrior and true believer, stared at this demon who spoke sense. For the first time in his career, doubt crept into his certainty. "The Prophet's decree? The prophets are wrong," Batman said, appearing beside Superman with the sudden silence that was his trademark. He held a holographic projector displaying Cortana's analysis. Footage from Forerunner records showing the flood's consumption of entire worlds, the desperate measures taken, the array's activation that had killed a galaxy to save it from something worse. "This is what you're trying to release," Batman continued. "Not treasure, not divine ascension, horror. Choose wisely. Thel Vadame looked at the images. Looked at his warriors, many dead or wounded. Looked at these 7 beings who'd fought with restraint, even when they could have slaughtered everyone. And for the first time in his life, he questioned the great journey. "Cease fire," he commanded. His elites hesitated. "I said cease fire. By my authority as shipmaster, stand down." The Covenant assault faltered, stopped. Confused warriors looking to their commander who just ordered retreat from their holy quest. Master Chief approached cautiously, assault rifle ready, but not aimed. "Smart choice." "Practical choice," Thel corrected. "If what you show me is truth, then we have been deceived. But the prophets will not accept this. They will send more fleets, more warriors. This installation will not remain secure. Then we make sure it can't be used," Cortana announced. "I've analyzed Halo's systems thoroughly. There's a way to disable the ring without destroying it. Send it into slip space with randomized coordinates. It would take centuries to locate again." Guilty Spark's objection was immediate. "That violates protocol. The array must remain accessible in case of flood outbreak." "The array nearly caused a flood outbreak," Superman countered. "Your protocol almost destroyed what it was meant to protect. Time for a new approach." The Monitor processed this. His entire existence had been defined by maintaining the installation, following protocol, preparing for activation. Now he was being asked to render it inaccessible, to trust that organic life could handle flood threats without the array's terrible solution. "I cannot," he said finally. "My programming will not permit willful deactivation of installation assets." "Then we'll do it," Cyborg said. "Cortana and I can execute the slip space jump, but Spark, you need to accept this. The galaxy's changed. Your Forerunners are gone. We're what's here now, and we're choosing to find better solutions than genocide." For 100,000 years, 343 guilty Spark had been alone with his duty. Now, surrounded by heroes and warriors from a dozen species, he found something he'd forgotten: purpose beyond protocol. "Very well," he said quietly. "Execute your plan. But know this: if the flood emerges elsewhere, if containment fails on other installations, the array will activate. Someone must maintain that vigil." "We will," Superman promised. "All of us. Human, Covenant, and whatever else this galaxy holds. Together." The slip space jump took 6 hours to calculate and execute. During that time, an uneasy truce held as Justice League, UNSC forces, and Covenant warriors worked together to reinforce containment and prepare for the installation's departure. Shipmaster Thel Vadame watched Superman seal a containment breach with his bare hands, using heat vision to weld Forerunner metal in ways that should have been impossible. Watched Wonder Woman coordinate with Spartans like they were Amazon sisters. Watched Batman, a human with no powers, outsmart Covenant engineers in system optimization. "What are you?" Thel asked Superman directly. "Someone who believes there's always another choice," Superman replied. "Between your holy war and humanity's desperate survival, there's a third path: peace, understanding, cooperation. We just proved it's possible. The prophets will never accept this." "Then the prophets are the problem," Batman said bluntly. "Not humanity, not the Forerunners. Leaders who demand genocide in the name of faith." Thel had no response, but the seed was planted. When Installation 04 jumped to slip space, vanishing from Threshold system with randomized coordinates that would take lifetimes to calculate, something fundamental shifted. The UNSC had lost a potential superweapon, but gained proof that alternatives existed. The Covenant had lost a holy site, but gained warriors who now questioned the Prophet's wisdom. And the Justice League had prevented galactic extinction while forging alliances that shouldn't have been possible. Captain Keyes, his ship barely functional, limped the Pillar of Autumn back toward UNSC space with 7 impossible passengers aboard. Admiral Parangoski would want debriefings, analysis, probably attempts to recruit or control them. Dr. Halsey would want to study their capabilities, understand their technology, leverage their presence. But Superman had made something clear during the return journey. We're not weapons you can deploy. We're not assets you can control. We're allies who will help when it's right and oppose you when it's wrong. That includes stopping the Covenant and stopping anyone who thinks genocide is an acceptable solution. Batman added his own warning. We've seen your Spartan program, your Oni operations, your willingness to sacrifice principles for survival. That changes now. If we're going to help you win this war, you're going to do it without becoming monsters. No more child soldiers, no more black ops targeting civilians. You want our help? You earn it. Parangoski's response, when it came, was characteristically pragmatic. You're demanding we fight with one hand tied behind our backs, while the Covenant has no such restrictions. No, Wonder Woman corrected. We're demanding you fight as heroes, not as desperate killers. There's a difference. And if you can't see it, you've already lost what makes you worth saving. The Justice League remained in the Halo universe for 3 more months, helping defend colonies, training UNSC forces, and most crucially, opening dialogue with Shipmaster Thel Vadami and other Covenant warriors who'd witnessed the truth about Halo. It wouldn't end the war. Centuries of religious indoctrination couldn't be undone in weeks. But it planted seeds of doubt in the Covenant's unity. And then, as suddenly as they'd arrived, a dimensional rift opened. Not a boom tube, something else, something that resonated with the slipspace coordinates from their original arrival. Cyborg's mother box had finally calculated a path home. You're leaving, Master Chief observed. No emotion in his voice, but something that might have been regret. Our universe needs us too, Superman said. But this isn't goodbye. If we can cross between universes once, we can do it again. If you need help, real help, not weapons deployment or asset utilization, we'll come back. Flash grinned. Plus, I kind of want to see how that whole reforming the Covenant from within thing works out. Very soap opera drama. Dr. Halsey approached, her scientific curiosity barely contained. Before you go, your technology, your abilities, the things we could learn, will remain ours, Batman said flatly. We've left Cortana analysis of our capabilities so you can develop countermeasures if we ever become hostile. That's the only data you get. Studying us, replicating us, weaponizing what we are, that path leads nowhere good. She wanted to argue. But looking at these 7 beings who'd prevented galactic extinction, saved thousands of lives, and proven that impossible alliances could work, she simply nodded. Fair enough. But for what it's worth, thank you. You gave us something we'd lost. Hope that this war might end without humanity's extinction. As the Justice League prepared to leave, 3:43, Guilty Spark made an unexpected appearance, projecting himself into the Autumn's hangar bay, where the dimensional rift was stabilizing. Reclaimer, he addressed Superman. I have calculated something during your time here. You promised to activate the array if all else failed. But you also taught me that all else includes far more options than protocol allowed. I am grateful. For 100,000 years, I believed my function was to wait for extinction. You showed me it could be to prevent it instead. Superman smiled. That's what heroes do. We find the better way. Then perhaps, Guilty Spark said, his aperture brightening, I shall endeavor to be heroic as well. Monitoring installations is far more rewarding when one believes in what one protects. They left through the rift, 7 heroes returning to their own universe, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by their presence. The war between humanity and the Covenant would continue, but now with complications. Elites who questioned their prophets, humans who'd seen alternatives to desperation, and the knowledge that somewhere, somehow, help might return when needed most. Shipmaster Thel Vadami stood aboard his carrier, watching the impossible rift close, and made a decision that would change everything. The prophets had sent him to activate Halo. He'd return with questions instead. And questions, in a theocracy built on absolute faith, were the most dangerous weapons of all. On Earth, the Justice League's Earth, they emerged from the rift into the watchtower, alarms blaring as dimensional sensors registered their return. Green Arrow was there, bow drawn until he recognized them. "You've been gone for 3 months," he shouted. "Where the hell were you?" "Saving a universe," Flash said cheerfully. "Long story, involves space zombies, religious alien fanatics, ancient superweapons, and Superman befriending a neurotic AI who'd been alone for 100,000 years." Green Arrow lowered his bow slowly. "I legitimately can't tell if you're joking." "He's not," Batman confirmed. "Debrief in 1 hour. Everyone else first. We need to document what we learned. That universe's technology, the flood threat, the possibility of return trips, and..." He glanced at Superman. "We need to discuss what happens if we're needed there again." Superman looked at his team. They'd gone to another universe by accident, intervened in a war they didn't understand, and somehow found a way to make things better instead of worse. They'd been tested not just in power, but in principle. And they'd held to what made them heroes, even when it would have been easier to compromise. "If they need us, we go," he said simply. "That's what the Justice League does. We protect the innocent, no matter what universe they're in." The multiverse was infinite. They'd just learned that firsthand. And in its vastness, they discovered something profound. Heroism wasn't bound by dimension, universe, or reality. It was a choice, made again and again, to stand against darkness even when the odds were impossible. The Justice League had faced the Halo universe at full power. Both sides uncompromised, both sides formidable. And through strength, wisdom, and unwavering principle, they'd found the path between extinction and genocide. Survival with hope intact. In the Halo universe, Cortana processed terabytes of data from their encounter, learning from heroes who operated on principles beyond pure survival. Master Chief prepared for a galaxy where questioning authority had become possible. And 343 Guilty Spark monitored the remaining installations, no longer alone, now connected to allies across dimensional barriers. The war would continue, but its outcome was no longer predetermined. The Justice League had ensured that much. 7 heroes who'd proven that even in the darkest universe, facing impossible odds against threats that had ended civilizations, there was always room for those willing to fight, not just for victory, but for something better. They were the Justice League, guardians not just of Earth, but of the principle that every life in every universe deserved protection. And the multiverse was richer for it.